Chapter 896. The city of ancient emperors was located in the central regions of the immortal realms, while the eastern sage 13 prefectures were located in the western regions. The distance between them was boundlessly vast, and one had to traverse through boundless territories. Even for immortal emperors, if they had to rely on themselves, they would need a long time before they could reach the city of ancient emperors. On the way there, the Emperor of Qianbian had used several teleportation arrays and even borrowed the supreme ancient teleportation arrays of immortal emperors. For immortal emperors, borrowing the teleportation arrays was a simple matter. As long as there was no grudge between them, everyone would give them face. Qin Wentian and the two others truly felt that they had traversed thousands and thousands of rivers. He was very clear that with his current cultivation base, if he wanted to head to the city of ancient emperors from the eastern sage 13 prefectures, it would be impossible for him to advance further. For a character like the Emperor of Qianbian, every step he took would take him several months or even longer. Qin Wentian basically had no way to measure how great the disparity between them was. They weren't on the same level. Finally, the few of them arrived before a boundless sea. The waves towered up into the sky as the sound of splashing rang out unceasingly. "We've arrived," the Emperor of Qianbian spoke, his words causing the expressions of Qin Wentian and the two others to stiffen. "They've arrived?" The city of ancient emperors was located in the middle of the sea. "This is the Eastern Sea. There's a spirit in the Eastern Sea. If one isn't at the immortal king realm, they wouldn't be able to cross this sea." The Emperor of Qianbian waved his hands, bringing the three of them along as they flew through the air. With just a single step, they were already far away from the shore. As they advanced, the waves roared and the wind howled. As time flowed by, Qin Wentian and the two others were enveloped by a screen of light. They could see a black-colored tempest enveloping them, and the entire sky was a shade of gray. Tornadoes and hurricanes could be seen, and destructive lightning could be seen flashing in the air. The scene of the tempest tearing everything apart caused their hearts to feel incomparably heavy. Although Qin Wentian and the others were being protected, they understood that if ordinary people were to step into this place, they would be directly torn apart into nothingness. However, just like that, the Thousand Transformations Emperor Lord directly stepped into the terrifying gray storm. Boundless immortal light enveloped them, as though there was an incomparably terrifying screen of lightning enveloping their bodies. Destructive energy waves unceasingly slammed into them, but the Thousand Transformations Emperor Lord acted as though nothing had happened, as he casually walked forward. The boundless ripping storm and the destructive power of lightning slammed into him, but the Thousand Transformations Emperor Lord did not seem to be affected at all. The impact of this scene was extremely great to the three of them who were protected. When one's cultivation base reached a certain level, they would be able to contend against the heavens and earth. That boundless lightning continued to rain down, flowing into the Thousand Transformations Emperor Lord's body, yet it was directly absorbed by him. "What is that?" The crowd saw that there was actually an ancient mountain that towered into the sky in the midst of the tumbling, destructive Eastern Sea. On the black ancient mountain, there was actually an old man sitting cross-legged, allowing the destructive energy to slam onto his body without moving an inch. How powerful! The hearts of Qin Wentian and the other two trembled. They continued forward, but the area of destruction seemed to be extremely vast. Finally, a ray of light appeared in front of them, as though they were about to exit this area of destruction. However, at the edge of that area, towering waves came crashing over. In the sea, a gigantic creature appeared, rushing into the air. This gigantic creature was actually a black dragon whose body was so huge that one couldn't see the end of it with a single glance. It was at least tens of thousands of meters long, and its huge eyes gave people a sense of fear. "Dragon Emperor, I am the Emperor of Qianbian. I brought 3 juniors into the Imperial City," the Emperor of Qianbian spoke. "How's their cultivation base and talent?" The black dragon roared, its voice akin to thunder, terrifying to the extreme. "All of them are at the celestial phenomenon realm, their talent is naturally outstanding. If not, this seat wouldn't have brought them here." The Emperor of Qianbian replied. "Good. Celestial phenomenon realm, enter the first level of the city of ancient emperors. Leave them to me. The black dragon opened its mouth wide, swallowing the waves. You guys cultivate well. The Dragon Emperor will naturally send you all to the city of ancient emperors. The Emperor of Qianbian spoke to Qin Wendian and the other two. With a wave of his hand, a powerful barrier of light enveloped the three of them as they floated into the black dragon's mouth. The black dragon closed its mouth. The Emperor of Qianbian turned and departed. Upon seeing this scene, the black dragon's gigantic body turned and directly dove into the boundless eastern sea, vanishing from sight. Qin Wendian and the other two were inside the black dragon's mouth. They could only wait quietly. After a long time, they only felt that their bodies were rapidly descending from the sky at a terrifying speed. 3 silhouettes fell from the sky, directly smashing into the ground. Thunderous rumbling sounds rang out as 3 craters appeared on the ground. This was the second time Qin Wendian experienced such a feeling. The first time was when he first arrived in the immortal realms. This time, it was when he arrived in the city of ancient emperors. How terrifying was the black dragon! With a single flick, they couldn't stop even if they wanted to. They were directly smashed into the ground, creating deep craters. The 3 of them directly rushed out from the deep crater, surveying their surroundings instantly. The eastern sea had already disappeared and they were now standing on an incomparably vast land. They seemed to have been tossed into an ancient city. This vast and boundless ancient city was completely different from the cities in the outside world. This was an ancient city that was independent of the immortal realms. There were towering buildings, ancient peaks that towered into the sky, and in the distance, there seemed to be a marvelous paradise and ancient mountain range. A training ground that could cause geniuses at the peak of the immortal realms to gather here. What sort of mystical place was this? Not far away, a few silhouettes could be seen walking over. One of them was a young man with long hair that draped over his shoulders. His skin was bronze in color and he exuded an indescribably wild aura. He had a mount, a ferocious beast that resembled a lion but was even more tyrannical. It was none other than the Golden Leo beast. There was also a female that was surrounded by multicolored light, exuding incomparable beauty. Her beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wendian and the other two as she asked, "More people have arrived in the city of ancient emperors. I wonder if they can leave this place alive. Where did the 3 of you come from?" The tone of this female was very boastful, her eyes gleaming with arrogance. Not only her, the people in the surroundings were all supreme geniuses, exuding an aura of arrogance. All of them had extraordinary statuses. Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures. What about you? Where did you come from? Jun Mengchen asked. Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures, I think I've heard of it before. It should be the western region governed by the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Are you guys disciples of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor? The female didn't reply to Jun Mengchen's question and continued asking. No. Jun Mengchen replied. You guys aren't even disciples of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor? Could it be that you are only disciples of immortal kings under the Dongxing Heaven Emperor? In that case, I wish you all the best. The female had an evil smile on her face, as though she had lost interest. She then turned and departed. The others also departed. There would often be people entering the city of ancient emperors, there was nothing strange about it. They only came here to take a look by coincidence. In the city of ancient emperors, there were quite a few descendants of immortal emperors, and even more disciples of immortal emperors. As for the disciples of immortal kings, they were all relatively ordinary existences. There were so many of them in the city of ancient emperors, it was unknown how many of such existences there were. The disciples of immortal kings have so little status. Jun Mengchen blinked. The tone of the female seemed to be filled with disdain. In the outside world, the disciples of immortal kings could already be considered extraordinary existences. For example, Hua Taishu and Ruthless, they were the disciples of immortal kings. But in the city of ancient emperors, the disciples of immortal kings were extremely ordinary existences. Because for those who could enter the city of ancient emperors, they would at least need the personal guidance of an immortal king before they could enter. Although immortal kings were considered supreme characters in the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, in the perspective of the entire immortal realms, although immortal kings were still considered experts, there were simply too many of them. In the city of ancient emperors, there are many descendants of immortal emperors. The disciples of immortal kings are naturally more ordinary, but everything still depends on one's strength. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. Jun Mengchen nodded in agreement. One's status was the ticket to enter the city of ancient emperors. Talent and strength were the foundation of everything. It's just that when she left, the smile on her face was somewhat demonic, wishing us good luck. What did she mean by that? Zi Qingxian was extremely sensitive. This was especially so for a female as well. She could clearly sense the demonic smile on that female's face before she left. I noticed it too. The people in the city of ancient emperors are all supreme geniuses who came here to temper themselves. There might be many conflicts between them. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. Let's go, let's walk around and understand this city better. Emicham, Zi Qingxian nodded. After that, the three of them continued on their way. In this ancient city, there would occasionally be experts passing by. Qin Wentian already clearly discovered that these people were all at the celestial phenomenon realm. This should be the gathering place for the supreme geniuses at the celestial phenomenon realm. However, even for celestial phenomenon ascendants, these people all exuded extraordinary auras. Why is there a sect here? In front of them, there was a vast land. The buildings here were all one entity, and there were ancient mountains and pavilions. Qin Wentian and the others could see a huge arched gate with the words God Extermination Palace engraved on it. The words were filled with force, and there would occasionally be geniuses walking out from the gate, exuding an imposing aura. What an arrogant name. Jun Mengchen mumbled. God Extermination Palace, truly the arrogance of the young, not knowing the immensity of the heavens and earth. However, the people here all had a high possibility of becoming hegemons of the immortal realms in the future. From afar, the few people who just walked out seemed to have heard Jun Mengchen's words. A few sharp gazes shot over as a group of figures walked over. These people all exuded an extraordinary aura and were extremely powerful. The person in the lead was clad in golden robes and had a feather fan in his hands. He had a crown of feathers on his head and stared at Qin Wentian and the others as he asked, "Did you guys just enter the city of ancient emperors?" "Yes." Jun Mengchen nodded. "Why are there still sects in the city of ancient emperors? Is it very strange?" That person laughed. The city of ancient emperors is a gathering place for geniuses. The people here would all form small groups and become brothers or friends. In the future, after they exit the city of ancient emperors, they would all become major characters of the immortal realms. Once they establish their own sect, they would be able to dominate an entire region. Qin Wentian's expression turned cold. That's true, the people here were all peak-level geniuses. Many of them would have extremely high achievements in the future. By forming friendships here, when they grew stronger in the future, it would be extremely terrifying if they joined forces. This was especially so in addition to their backgrounds. "Do you guys want to join my God Extermination Palace?" That person smiled as he asked. "Nope, we just arrived here. Let's observe for a while longer." Jun Mengchen shook his head. "Oh." That young man laughed. "Since you guys aren't willing to join, hand over all your interspatial rings first." Qin Wentian saw the meaningful smiles on the faces of these people. He instantly understood what the young woman meant earlier. This place where geniuses gathered wasn't suitable for mediocre people. Chapter 897. Qin Wentian surveyed the five before him. The young man with the crown on his head had a cultivation base at the 8th level of celestial phenomenon. As for the other four, 3 of them were at the 7th level while the last was at the 6th level. The 5 of them all exuded an extraordinary aura. In addition, their sects were located in this place. If they clashed against each other, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. "Not joining our God Extermination Palace? Are we going to do this?" Qin Wentian asked. Since we aren't friends, we are merely strangers. You guys just arrived here and might not understand the rules of the City of Ancient Emperors. In this city, competition is a common thing. If not, how can you improve? Today, our God Extermination Palace shall give you all a lesson. The young man had a carefree smile on his face. Plundering the interspatial rings of others was a common thing in the City of Ancient Emperors. Those who could come here would all have plenty of treasures on them. Naturally, it was very rare for people in the City of Ancient Emperors to kill each other. After all, many of these people were descendants or disciples of major characters. Everyone would show mercy and wouldn't form a life-and-death grudge. In addition, many geniuses had immortal senses left behind by their seniors. Once they encountered a life-and-death crisis, their immortal senses would be activated. As for competition, it was a form of tempering. Those major characters were very relaxed in leaving their juniors here. Even if they had to suffer some setbacks, it wouldn't be too bad for them. Let's go. Qin Wentian spoke. After that, the three of them departed. Where do you think you are going? The young man with the crown on his head laughed. After that, the group of them chased after them as their auras gushed forth. That crowned young man radiated a dazzling white light as a constellation manifested in the air. This constellation seemed to be a combination constellation. A gigantic figure that resembled a divinity wielded a golden spear and stood in the air. Terrifying light revolved around him, resembling countless golden roulette wheels, exuding an indomitable aura. Stay here. The young man pointed the golden spear in his hand forward. In an instant, countless golden wheels shot out like dazzling rays of golden light, destroying everything in their path. They were like endless golden lightning that could even tear space apart. The other four experts also unleashed their powerful auras as well as their constellations. One of them was able to control his constellation, causing an ancient tree king to extend up into the sky, wanting to engulf everything in its path, sealing this entire space. At the same instant, Qin Wentian and the other two released their constellations as well as their tyrannical auras. Terrifying rumbling sounds echoed out as Qin Wentian's body abruptly grew to a height of 10 meters. His entire body shone with a dazzling luster as runic light circulated around it, resembling an armor of fiend gods. Behind his back, a pair of golden rock wings appeared as a resplendent long spear appeared in his hands. His suppression annihilation constellation appeared as a towering suppression might gushed forth from him. Golden bodies rushed out and charged towards the incoming golden light. Rumbling sounds rang out incessantly, and the golden wheels were all shattered and destroyed. Qin Wentian's body suddenly turned around. In an instant, the shadow of a golden rock appeared in the void. There seemed to be a terrifying shadow of a heavenly rock in the sky, incomparably gorgeous. How fast! The crowned expert in the air froze when he saw the shadow of the heavenly rock. Qin Wentian's silhouette had already vanished. The long spear in his hands directly pierced towards one of his companions, the 7th-level ascendant who unleashed his suppression constellation. The speed of this attack was simply too fast. Qin Wentian was like a heavenly rock, his gigantic body and the gigantic long spear in his hands erupted forth with unparalleled might. Just this strike alone was enough to kill an expert on the same level as him. However, the people in the City of Ancient Emperors were all geniuses. When that expert felt the immense pressure, countless tree vines shot towards Qin Wentian's long spear, enveloping everything. However, how terrifying was this spear strike of Qin Wentian? The fiend god heavenly suppression art was infused into his spear, containing a fearsome suppressive might. Not only that, the spear also contained the insights Qin Wentian had comprehended. Resplendent runic light flashed, containing a formless law energy, causing the tree vines to shatter and dissipate into nothingness. A hole appeared at the tip of the spear as the long spear pierced through. Bzz. The long spear abruptly halted, stopping right in front of his opponent. Time seemed to have frozen in that instant. The crowned expert in the air descended, and when he saw this scene, his countenance changed. Senior brother Qin is awesome. The people from the God Extermination Palace are merely at this level. Jun Mengchen spoke with cold arrogance when he saw this scene. These geniuses from the city of ancient emperors were all very arrogant. Weren't the three of them the same as well? With just a single strike, Qin Wentian suppressed a genius who was proficient in control at the same level as him. The eyes of this genius were still filled with reluctance. The speed of Qin Wentian's attack was too fast, and his spear technique was too tyrannical. He didn't even have time to unleash his own strength to defend before he was already suppressed. It's common for geniuses to fight each other in the city of ancient emperors. It's common for people to seize treasures, but it's extremely rare for them to kill each other and form a life-and-death grudge. Although you guys are new here, I'm sure you should be able to understand this. The crowned expert spoke. Being able to suppress someone from my god extermination palace with a single strike, you can consider yourself powerful. The three of you can leave now. You are right, seizing treasures is very common. Qin Wentian laughed. Before this, you guys wanted to seize our interspatial rings. Now that I've suppressed one of you, you want us to leave. What do you want? That crowned expert coldly laughed. Hand over all your interspatial rings. Jun Mengchen roared. What a joke. The people in the city of ancient emperors aren't threatened. You want all of our interspatial rings because you controlled a single person. This is impossible. If you guys want to do this, you can do whatever you want to him. That crowned expert spoke with cold arrogance. Hand over all your interspatial rings. As the price, the three of you will immediately retreat. Qin Wentian calmly spoke, his words causing the expressions of the crowned expert to turn ashen. Friends, this is your first time here in the city of ancient emperors. It's fine if you can retreat safely, but don't go too far. The treasures of the god extermination palace will only burn your hands. That crowned expert threatened. Don't force me to act. Qin Wentian's spear shimmered with terrifying runic light, causing the expressions of the experts from the god extermination palace to turn heavy. That crowned expert spoke, remember this. After speaking, he waved his hands as the four of them turned and departed. As for those who were restrained by Qin Wentian, they all took out their interspatial rings and handed them over to Qin Wentian. Let's go. After Qin Wentian received the interspatial rings, the three of them flashed as they sped away with lightning speed. After they left, a group of figures from the god extermination palace flew over. When they saw the three of them leaving, their eyes flickered with coldness. Qin Wentian's group of three sped through the air, moving about the city. We need a map, Zi Qingxian spoke. The three of them would need to stay in the city of ancient emperors for a very long period of time. Qin Wentian nodded, he also thought of this. The three of them stopped a passerby and asked, Sir, may I ask where we can find a map of the city of ancient emperors? Let's go to the ancient emperor tower. It's the largest transaction ground in the city of ancient emperors and the tallest building you can see. You can find anything you want there. The passerby laughed. Qin Wentian thanked him. The three of them turned their gazes to the horizons and indeed, there was an extremely tall building there. The three of them then directly flew over. There were many people in the ancient emperor tower. When Qin Wentian entered, there was a beautiful maiden who came to receive them. She stared at Qin Wentian's group and asked, What do you guys need? We need a map of the city of ancient emperors. Qin Wentian replied. The maiden smiled. She took out 3 jade slips and passed them to the three of them. There's a map of the city of ancient emperors in there. I'm sure the three of you have just entered the city of ancient emperors, right? In the future, if you need any cultivation arts or innate techniques, or if you want to trade, you can come here. This ancient emperor tower was also founded by a genius who came here to cultivate. Jun Mengchen curiously asked. The maiden smiled but didn't reply. A look of contemplation appeared on Qin Wentian's face. The geniuses in the city of ancient emperors all cultivated peak-level cultivation arts and innate techniques, and the treasures they had were all extremely valuable as well. If they all traded with the ancient emperor tower, the number of cultivation arts and innate techniques collected by the ancient emperor tower would surely be terrifying. Maybe, a major power in the immortal realms had already stretched their hands into the city of ancient emperors. What power is the God Extermination Palace? Qin Wendian curiously asked. The God Extermination Palace is a sect founded by a genius in the city of ancient emperors. Their sect leader is the son of an immortal emperor and is a ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings. However, his ranking is quite low, and the God Extermination Palace can be considered one of the weaker sects in the city of ancient emperors. The maiden smiled as she explained, not showing any signs of impatience. Immortal Ascension rankings? Jun Mengchen's expression flickered as he asked, "What's that?" The vast majority of those who come to the city of ancient emperors are here for the sake of tempering themselves. This is a place where geniuses gather, and the immortal emperors and immortal kings of the immortal realms would naturally send them here for them to ascend to the immortal realm. Hence, many geniuses would stay here for a long period of time. The Immortal Ascension Rankings is a ranking of the geniuses in the city of ancient emperors, and there are a total of 360 rankers in it. The sect leader of the God Extermination Palace is one of them, the maiden explained. After that, he took out 3 jade slips and passed them to the 3 of them. These are the rankings of the Immortal Ascension Rankings. Similarly, they are provided for free. Qin Wendian received it and swept it with his perception. Instantly, 360 names appeared in his mind as his body involuntarily trembled. Number 5 on the Immortal Ascension Rankings, Qing, daughter of Changqing the Great of the Evergreen Kingdom. Her cultivation base is at the 9th level of Celestial Phenomenon, and she's an innate immortal king. Within the Jade Slip, there was an introduction of Qing, ranked number 5 on the Immortal Ascension Rankings. Qing, Qin Wendian mumbled in a low voice. The maiden smiled, "Sir, do you also know that Princess Qing, is from the Evergreen Kingdom? Eastern Sage 13 Prefectures." Qin Wendian continued, "But I only know of Princess Qing, Is she very famous in the city of ancient emperors?" The people in the city of ancient emperors are all supreme geniuses. For those who can enter the top 100 of the Immortal Ascension Rankings, it means that their rankings are among the top in the entire immortal realms. From this, one can very well imagine the weight of the number 5 ranker. Naturally, the Immortal Ascension Rankings are constantly changing, and what you see is only a temporary ranking. But being able to enter the top 100 is already sufficient to prove one's strength. Not only that, Princess Qing, has been in the city of ancient emperors for 7 years now, and her ranking has always been climbing, never falling back. Many people believe that Princess Qing, has a high chance of becoming the top 3 rankers in the Immortal Ascension Rankings. The maiden smiled. Qin Wendian had a contemplative look on his face. Chapter 898. Upon seeing the expression on Qin Wendian's face, the maiden beside him smiled. "You're secretly in love with Princess Qing, Qin Wendian smiled and nodded, "I guess so." "Where can I find her?" "I don't know about that. Princess Qing, didn't join any sect or power in the city of ancient emperors, and her whereabouts are unknown. Given how vast the city of ancient emperors is, how would it be so easy to find her?" The maiden shook her head. However, as one of the 3 most outstanding beauties in the city of ancient emperors, Princess Qing, has many pursuers. Qin Wendian smiled, "Many thanks. Who are the 3 most outstanding beauties in the city of ancient emperors?" Jun Mengchen seemed to be interested as he asked. The daughter of Changqing the Great, Princess Qing, ranked number 5 in the Immortal Ascension Rankings. There's another person who has been famous for a long time and has been tempering herself in the city of ancient emperors for many years. The holy maiden of the Namhuang clan, Namhuang Yunxi, ranked number 3 in the Immortal Ascension Rankings. This maiden is the successor of the Namhuang clan, a descendant of the Southern Phoenix matriarch and a famous ice beauty of the Namhuang clan. The maiden smiled as she introduced. Qin Wendian and the other 2 saw the name of the number 3 ranker of the Immortal Ascension Rankings. She was none other than Namhuang Yunxi, the holy maiden of the Namhuang clan, at the 9th level of Celestial Phenomenon and possessing Nirvanic blood. There's also the number 6 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings, Xiao Lingyue. She's the daughter of the Xiao Emperor and is a famous beauty in the northern regions of the Immortal Realms. Her cultivation base is also at the 9th level of Celestial Phenomenon. The maiden introduced the last person. Qin Wentian and the others discovered that the top rankers of the Immortal Ascension rankings were all descendants of immortal emperors. As for the other rankers, their cultivation bases were all at the 9th level of Celestial Phenomenon. Those who could be ranked on the Immortal Ascension rankings were all terrifying geniuses. It was simply too difficult if one wanted to jump levels and ascend the rankings. After all, the rankings were determined by strength. Which of the three is the most beautiful? Jun Mengchen laughed, his words causing Zi Qingxian to glare at him. But since he's secretly in love with Princess Qing'er, you guys better not antagonize Xiao Lingyue. It's rumored that Xiao Lingyue was surpassed by Princess Qing'er in the Immortal Ascension rankings. Xiao Lingyue has a grudge in her heart and wanted to find Princess Qing'er for a battle to prove herself. Sadly, Princess Qing'er doesn't seem to have such an interest and the two of them have never met before. Xiao Lingyue has always been searching for Princess Qing'er but she hasn't found her yet. I'd like to meet them. Jun Mengchen's eyes gleamed with excitement, but Qin Wentian said to the woman, "Thank you. Don't worry about it, it's nothing much." The woman smiled and sent Qin Wentian and the others out of the ancient emperor tower. She was extremely polite. After Qin Wentian exited the tower, he turned his gaze to the horizons and drew in a deep breath. Qing'er was also in this ancient city. It was just that when his perception seeped into the map, he discovered that the vastness of the city of ancient emperors was far beyond his imagination. It was like a particle world of its own. Right now, the location they were in right now could be considered to be extremely remote, near the outskirts of the city. In the outskirts of the city of ancient emperors, there were forests and ancient mountains. "Senior brother, are you lovers with Princess Qing'er?" Jun Mengchen curiously asked. He had never asked Qin Wentian about this before. "MHM," Qin Wentian nodded, a smile could be seen in his eyes. Although he temporarily had no way to find Qing'er, at the very least, he knew that she was in the same city as him. Ever since they parted in the particle world, he had never been so close to Qing'er before. Princess Qing'er must be very outstanding. Jun Mengchen also smiled when he saw the smile on Qin Wentian's face. Not just outstanding. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the sky. Sunlight cascaded down, illuminating his handsome countenance. Zi Qingxian, who was at the side, was filled with curiosity when she saw the radiant smile on Qin Wentian's face. She was also filled with curiosity towards the daughter of the evergreen immortal emperor, Princess Qing'er. It was very rare for her to see such an expression on Qin Wentian's face. The radiant smile on his face contained traces of longing. "Michem." At this moment, Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. He abruptly turned his gaze towards a direction not far away, only to see a few figures staring at them as they sped over. One of them had a pair of golden eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything. When he saw Qin Wentian, his eyes gradually returned to normal, but they still gave off a sense of sharpness. Beside this person, was none other than the young man from the God Extermination Palace. Other than the two of them, there were two other young geniuses who were also speeding over. "Let's go." Qin Wentian and the other two instantly soared up into the air, flying towards the horizons. "That pair of eyes are extremely evil. That person must have tracked us." A pair of divine hawk wings appeared behind Zi Qingshuan's back as she moved with lightning speed. Among the three of them, Jun Mengchen's speed was the slowest. After all, his cultivation base was the lowest, at the peak of the 6th level of Celestial Phenomenon. Qin Wentian and Zi Qingshuan's cultivation base were the same, at the 7th level of Celestial Phenomenon. Terrifying rumbling sounds rang out as the blood in Qin Wentian's body seethed. A sharp whistling sound rang out as a destructive might gushed forth. A demonic beast directly flew out from Qin Wentian's body, its wings blotting out the sun. Its entire body shone with a terrifying fiery light, as well as a faint black glow. Terrifying demonic light flowed unceasingly from its body. This demonic beast was none other than Purgatory, which had always existed in Qin Wentian's blood. The Purgatory vermilion bird circled in the air above Qin Wentian, seemingly extremely excited. "Let's go up." Qin Wentian stepped out as the three of them mounted Purgatory's back. Purgatory flapped its wings ferociously as it sped through the air with lightning speed. "A vermilion bird? Very good." The eyes of the young man with the jade crown flickered with excitement. These newcomers actually dared to snatch the disciples of their god extermination palace? How audacious. Today, they would definitely teach them an unforgettable lesson. "Senior brother, do we fight?" Jun Mengchen roared. "The four of them are all at the 8th level of celestial phenomenon, and the auras they give me are all extremely majestic. Their bloodlines are extremely powerful, and there are no weaklings in the city of ancient emperors. It would be difficult to fight them head-on." Qin Wentian spoke in a loud voice. After all, Jun Mengchen's current cultivation base was only at the 6th level of celestial phenomenon. Jumping 2 levels to fight against the geniuses of the city of ancient emperors, this was something impossible. The higher one's cultivation base was, the stronger they would be, nearing immortal foundation. "Storm augmentation." That expert with the jade crown roared. Among the four of them, one of them released his constellation as a destructive tornado enveloped the four of them, transforming into fearsome wings of wind. Instantly, the speed of the four of them who were already extremely fast increased explosively as they chased after Qin Wentian and the others. Qin Wentian waved his hand as a pure white demonic beast appeared. Qin Wentian directly slapped it. "Little rascal, it's time to wake up. You woke me up again. You are the bastard." The pitiful little fellow scratched his eyes, his actions were extremely terrifying. It was as though he couldn't wake up at all. Ever since he started sleeping with the medicine sovereign, he would sleep for several years at a time. "I've been using my bloodline to nourish you until you are white and chubby. It's time for you to do something. I'll leave the constellations to you." Qin Wentian spoke. "Oh." Little rascal rubbed his eyes. After which, his body expanded in size, instantly transforming into a ferocious demonic beast. His forehead gleamed with a terrifying golden light, resembling a fearsome demon king. He stood at the tail of Purgatory and roared in rage. A moment later, a terrifying vortex appeared in the sky as the Tempest constellation was sucked into it. What demonic beast is this? It can even devour the energy of constellations? The countenance of the young man who used the storm augmentation technique changed as he stared at the transformed little rascal. Was this demonic beast a heaven-devouring beast? It could even devour celestial phenomenon. Not long after, the tempest around them transformed from a heaven-shaking and earth-shattering might into gusts of gentle wind. "Little rascal, what's your current cultivation base?" Qin Wentian asked. "I don't know." Little rascal shook his head, only to see the young man with the jade crown releasing his constellation. Numerous golden wheels frenziedly shot out, aiming for Little Rascal. Little Rascal howled in rage. It opened its gigantic mouth again and swallowed the golden roulette, causing Qin Wentian to be so shocked that he was speechless. Was Little Rascal already so powerful? Seems like his blood wasn't wasted. Regardless of Little Rascal or Purgatory, they were both nurtured by Qin Wentian using his own bloodline. "Seems like we can fight now." Qin Wentian mumbled. "Prepare for battle." "Right." Jun Mengchen nodded. His aura erupted forth as his constellation was released. Zi Qingxian transformed into a divine falcon as a violet gold light shone with incomparable brilliance. Purgatory abruptly halted. The three of them turned around at the same time. Qin Wentian's body expanded to 10 meters as he released his suppression annihilation astral soul. Instantly, a terrifying golden silhouette manifesting a heaven-shaking suppressive might. The godlike figure in the sky above the expert wearing the jade crown pierced out with his long spear. Incomparably huge golden wheels flew out, and with a loud rumble, a golden brilliance radiated out, destroying everything in its path. Beside him was an 8th-level ascendant. His entire body was covered in muscular lines and he was 3 meters tall. His eyes were a shade of dark green, and when he released his constellation, a terrifying green-colored monster manifested behind him. This monster had many terrifying green arms that were filled with boundless strength. These arms expanded explosively and directly grabbed towards Qin Wentian's group of 3 as well as the 2 demonic beasts. There was another person who released a terrifying tempest constellation. Within the tempest, there was even a thunderous sword might that directly tore apart space, sweeping outwards. A chaotic battle erupted at any moment. The 4 8th level ascendants were all supremely terrifying characters. Little Rascal roared in rage once more. His body grew even larger, similar to Qin Wentian, transforming into a gigantic demon. He opened his mouth and howled, resembling a demon king. The devouring vortex grew larger and larger, devouring all the attacks from the constellations. This demonic beast is immune to constellation attacks and can even devour constellation energy. We need to use brute force to attack it. The crowned young man spoke. The space above purgatory was filled with terrifying purgatory devil flames, blasting downwards. Zi Qingxian blasted out a boundless killing might from a divine falcon, while Jun Mengchen unleashed his tyrannical might, exuding a towering aura of an emperor. At this instant, the battle that erupted caused the entire space to turn violent. Many people below noticed this and all inclined their heads as expressions of interest appeared on their faces, wanting to watch a good show. Chapter 899. The people in the city of ancient emperors were all celestial phenomenon ascendants of the same generation. There would always be conflicts, and there were even times when a sect war broke out. Hence, the spectators were all very calm when they saw the battle in the air. Nobody felt anything was strange, they were only wondering why these people were fighting. This was a place within the city, there shouldn't be any ancient sects here. The number of people on both sides was limited, and it didn't seem like a sect war. There was only one female, and although she was beautiful, she was also participating in the battle. Those 2 demonic beasts aren't bad at all. One of them is a mutated vermilion bird, while the other is a descendant of some unknown ancient demon. It actually has the ability to devour celestial constellations, and is immune to the attacks of constellations. If one wants to fight against this demonic beast, they would have to fight in close combat. Someone spoke in a low voice. Seems like this is a battle for treasures. In this city, it was common for experts to rob the weak. In addition, just these 2 demonic beasts alone were enough to attract the attention of many. The battle was extremely intense. Qin Wentian directly faced off against that crowned expert. Behind the 2 of them, there were constellations of divinity that frenziedly rushed towards each other. Countless golden wheels flew out from the crowned expert's constellation, slicing through space, aiming for Qin Wentian. At the same time, that divinity wielded a long spear and stabbed out. The long spear expanded explosively, wanting to nail Qin Wentian to death in the air, its might incomparably ferocious. Qin Wentian's physique was gigantic, and his entire body was shimmering with a fiend god armor. A pair of wings sprouted out from his back and a long spear in his hands. His speed was as fast as lightning, akin to a heavenly rock soaring through the skies, shuttling through the countless wheels. Behind him, boundless suppressive might blasted out, unceasingly shattering the wheels in front of him. Bzz. A terrifying long spear stabbed out, piercing through the heavens and earth with boundless might. The tip of the spear shone with a dazzling light, capable of suppressing everything. The crowned expert slashed out with his spear, slashing apart the space. At the same time, boundless golden light transformed into an incomparably gigantic golden wheel that acted like a shield, blocking in front of him. Boom! The spear hit the wheel, and a terrifying sound was heard. Cracks appeared on the golden wheel, and it collapsed immediately. However, the spear also threatened Qin Wentian at the same time. His body flickered again, and he was incredibly fast. In just an instant, Qin Wentian's figure transformed into many afterimages. His long spear continued to attack, and every attack was as fast as lightning. However, it was capable of suppressing the heavens and the earth, and its might was boundless. The jade-crowned expert stood where he was and continued to resist. His defense was continuously broken, but he was completely restricted. He couldn't help but have an ugly expression on his face. Interesting, this man's cultivation base is only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon, yet he can fight so violently against an 8th level ascendant. Someone in the crowd had an expression of interest on his face when they saw the battle between Qin Wendian and the crowned expert. That crowned expert seemed to be enraged. He roared in rage as a boundless light radiated from him. In an instant, numerous terrifying long spears appeared in the air as the might of his constellation was unleashed to the extreme. With a single palm strike, the millions of long spears pierced through the heavens and earth, exuding a might that could shake the heavens. Not only did they shoot towards Qin Wendian, the remaining long spears also shot towards Zi Qingxian and Jun Mengchen. Impudent! Qin Wendian roared. The terrifying demonic blood in his body towered up into the skies. His eyes were like that of a demon as he unceasingly unleashed the 3rd level of the battle art. In an instant, the battle light radiating from him grew even more blinding. Kill! The crowned expert was also enraged. He was like a divinity as countless golden long spears pierced through the air, shooting towards Qin Wendian. At this moment, Qin Wendian's body transformed into a myriad of clones. Countless Qin Wendians stabbed out with their spears at the same time. The terrifying spear light could suppress everything, and under the might of his constellation, the suppression force was tyrannical to the extreme. Everywhere the spear light passed by, the golden spear light would shatter into pieces. The countenance of the crowned young man changed. Golden blood circulated in his veins as he lifted his palms to attack. A golden heavenly rampart appeared before him, blocking all attacks. Terrifying runic light circulated around the rampart as rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly. Finally, the heavenly rampart shattered apart as a sure-kill spear appeared in the eyes of the crowned young man. This was none other than Qin Wendian's suppression spear. As it pierced out, the entire space turned incomparably heavy. Swishing sounds rang out as the power of the crowned young man's bloodline gushed forth. A long spear formed from countless golden runes appeared in his hands as boundless astral energy cascaded down on him. When his spear pierced out, it contained a destructive might so great that it felt as though a black hole was about to appear. No one could block it. Boom! The long spear and the long spear collided together as a fearsome destructive might erupted forth. Boundless energies clashed against each other, causing the long spear and the long spear in their hands to explode at the same time, unable to withstand the fearsome destructive might. Qin Wendian retreated slightly while the crowned expert was flung through the air. With a groan of misery, he felt as though there was a primordial beast energy ravaging his body, wanting to destroy his life force. However, he still endured it and didn't cough out blood. The other experts were also madly fighting. Zi Qingxian, Purgatory, and Jun Mengchen each fought against one of their opponents. Little Rascal was frenziedly devouring the constellations of his opponents, weakening the strength of their attacks. Out of the 3 battles, Purgatory's battle with her opponent was the most intense. Although Jun Mengchen's attacks were powerful, he who was 2 levels lower than her, was still suppressed by that expert with the myriad of green arms. However, Little Rascal would occasionally rush out with lightning speed, letting out a roar of rage as it swallowed the energy from his opponent's constellation, causing those arms to vanish. Vile beast! That green-eyed young man saw Little Rascal moving between the 3 battles, devouring their attacks unceasingly. He couldn't help but to feel rage burning in his heart. Stepping out, he dashed towards Little Rascal as countless arms enveloped the area, locking down the entire space. Little Rascal soared up into the air and used his huge mouth to bite off the arm of his opponent. However, he only saw the palms of his opponent blasting out an ink-green palm strike, blasting onto Little Rascal's gigantic body. The ink-green palm imprint seemed to contain a powerful corrosive energy, causing Little Rascal to howl in pain. At this moment, a sharp sword slashed down from the sky, directly slicing apart those green tentacles. Qin Wendian's silhouette appeared as he blasted out with both palms. A terrifying palm imprint capable of plucking the sun, moon, and constellations manifested, gushing towards his opponent. Runic light circulated within the palm imprints, containing a supreme suppressive might. The constellation behind the green-eyed young man shimmered with a dazzling light as millions of arms blasted out at the same time. Rumble. That expert retreated as he stared at Qin Wentian's silhouette. After which, the crowned young man also walked over, standing in front of him. "Little rascal, are you all right?" Qin Wentian asked. "I'm fine, I'm just scratching an itch." Little rascal spoke in a baby-like voice. His voice didn't seem to match his gigantic body at all. A dazzling white light radiated from him, expelling the corrosive energy from his body. Bzz. A gust of wind gusted by as Zi Qingxian also arrived here. Purgatory hovered in the air while the other 4 experts were also gathered together. Both sides stood in opposition. "Luckily I didn't join your god extermination palace. What a bunch of trash. 4 8th level ascendants are merely a so-so." Jun Mengchen roared, causing the eyes of the people below to brighten. So it turned out that they were from the god extermination palace. 4 8th level ascendants from the god extermination palace actually fought to a draw. Their opponent doesn't even have a single 8th level ascendant. Someone below laughed, causing the countenances of the experts from the god extermination palace to turn unsightly to behold. "It's just a warm-up. If you guys take the initiative to hand over your interspatial rings and the 2 vile beasts to us, we will let this matter rest." The crowned young man maintained his elegance as he spoke to Qin Wentian and the others. "Warm up. Earlier you were forced back by my senior brother, right? You guys are a level higher. What a joke. Seems like your god extermination palace only dares to deal with those with lower cultivation bases. Such a sect can actually exist in the city of ancient emperors? How ironic. Your mouth is so smelly. I will let you know the consequences of your words." That green-eyed young man coldly spoke. "What's going on?" A voice drifted over from afar. More and more experts soared through the air and flew over. The experts from the god extermination palace laughed coldly in their hearts when they saw the newcomers. There are a few newcomers who are extremely arrogant, snatching the interspatial rings of our disciples. I'm currently teaching them a lesson. They're together. Jun Mengchen's expression turned heavy. There were quite a few experts from the god extermination palace, all of them exuding an extraordinary aura. From afar, there were still a few more people flying over, and the person in the middle had a terrifying gaze. "Palace Lord is here as well." The crowned young man stared at the elegant young man as he spoke. The Palace Lord of the god extermination palace, Ji Lanshan. The eyes of everyone gleamed with sharpness as they stared at the elegant young man in luxurious robes. Ji Lanshan, the Palace Lord of the god extermination palace. His cultivation base is at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon, and he's also an expert on the Immortal Ascension rankings. Experts on the Immortal Ascension rankings represented the strongest geniuses in the city of ancient emperors. Although Ji Lanshan's ranking was at the bottom, he could still be considered a character whose radiance shone brightly in the perspective of the entire city of ancient emperors. The instant he appeared, the gazes of everyone turned to him. Qin Wentian and the others instantly knew who this person was when they heard the low murmurs of the crowd. In the Jade Slip, Ji Lanshan was ranked 321st on the Immortal Ascension rankings, and was the Palace Lord of the God Extermination Palace. He cultivated the 1,000 Talismans Immortal Tome, and his attacks were extremely powerful. Ji Lanshan swept his gaze over, staring at Qin Wentian and the others as he felt some unhappiness in his heart. For 8th level ascendants of the God Extermination Palace actually couldn't even deal with these few people. This would undoubtedly weaken the prestige of the God Extermination Palace. Naturally, as the Palace Lord, he naturally had to protect the God Extermination Palace. Seeing that you guys are newcomers, I won't be calculative with you. Since you guys snatched the interspatial rings of my disciples, hand over everything you have and apologize. I will allow you all to leave. Ji Lanshan stood in the air as he spoke, his tone tyrannical, leaving no room for doubt. The words of experts on the immortal ascension rankings still carried a lot of weight in the city of ancient emperors. Chapter 900. Qin Wentian and the other two turned their gazes to Ji Lanshan. Ji Lanshan's tone was calm, and from his words, it was as though Qin Wentian and the others were the ones who took the initiative to antagonize the God Extermination Palace. However, since this Ji Lanshan was an expert from the God Extermination Palace, he would naturally protect the God Extermination Palace. With a single sentence, he directly splashed dirty water on them, wanting them to hand over all their interspatial rings and apologize. After that, Ji Lanshan allowed them to leave, as though it was a gift from him. Such a situation might seem laughable, but in truth, this was a common occurrence everywhere in the immortal realms. The strong preyed on the weak, nothing could be more normal. You already said that we are newcomers, yet you say that we snatched the interspatial rings of the disciples of your God Extermination Palace? How laughable are your words! Or should I say, how weak are the people of your God Extermination Palace? Qin Wentian laughed mockingly. How could the people below not understand this logic? But so what if they understood? The most important thing was the result. Qin Wentian's group was clearly not strong enough. They could only be bullied. This was the price of being a newcomer, especially for newcomers who didn't know how to endure. It was all too common for them to be bullied in the city of ancient emperors. Since you guys are unwilling, you guys can do it yourself. Ji Lanshan glanced at the experts beside him. Momentarily, these experts all stepped out, surrounding Qin Wentian, Yan Liqiang, and the two demonic beasts. A terrifying might gushed forth, yet Ji Lanshan's countenance was incomparably calm. He stared at Qin Wentian as he spoke, "It's still not too late. Apologize? Dream on." Jun Mengchen coldly spoke. Given the personalities of the three of them, how could they obediently hand over their interspatial rings and apologize? That was a humiliation. Even if they were defeated, they had to do it openly. Very good. Newcomers, let me remind you guys. It's best not to use immortal-ranked weapons in the city of ancient emperors. Once an immortal-ranked weapon appears, no one would be able to control the situation. I have to remind you guys about this. After all, there's no one in this city who lacks immortal-ranked treasures. Ji Lanshan calmly spoke. Qin Wentian and the others also understood that Ji Lanshan was speaking the truth. He had an immortal-ranked weapon, but the people in the city of ancient emperors were all descendants of immortal kings and emperors. Which of them didn't have powerful treasures? In the battles in the city of ancient emperors, everyone would hold back and not take the lives of their opponents. After all, they were all characters with extraordinary statuses, and there was no need for them to form a life and death grudge with their elders. Also, once everyone used their immortal-ranked weapons, it would be extremely difficult to control them. After all, their strength was limited and they had no way to fully control treasures that were too powerful. Not using immortal-ranked weapons was a widely accepted rule in the city of ancient emperors. Take him down. Ji Lanshan faintly spoke. Qin Wentian and the rest turned ashen. The situation was extremely disadvantageous to them. In such a situation, they would definitely lose. Kid, let me play with you again. That gigantic green-eyed constellation acted. Countless green arms erupted forth, grabbing towards Jun Mengchen. Jun Mengchen soared up into the air as a king armor covered his body. The clear sky worldly diagram shone resplendently, causing the eyes of many to be filled with shock when they stared at him. Die! Jun Mengchen howled in rage as boundless energy gushed forth. His king chi transformed into a war chariot that soared through the air, clashing madly against the green arms. However, there were too many of them and Jun Mengchen's cultivation base was still too low. It was still somewhat difficult for him to defend against them. Little Rascal's silhouette flashed, transforming into a gigantic ancient devouring constellation. However, the crowned expert brandished his golden spear and dashed towards Little Rascal. Boundless golden light gushed forth unceasingly, terrifying to the extreme. This person didn't choose to fight against Qin Wentian because he had his own plans. Before this, when he clashed against Qin Wentian, he was actually forced back by Qin Wentian despite having a cultivation base at the 8th level of celestial phenomenon. If he fought against Qin Wentian again now, he would truly lose face. Rumble. Qin Wentian's entire body shimmered with fiend god light. His body instantly expanded to a height of 700 meters, resembling a giant. Both his palms shimmered with terrifying runic light as he directly blasted out towards the experts from the God Extermination Palace. His terrifying physique and fearsome palm imprints contained a heaven-shaking might. The countenances of the experts from the God Extermination Palace drastically changed as they retreated with explosive speed. However, that palm imprint was simply too gigantic, it directly bore down on them as terrifying rumbling sounds echoed out. The experts from the God Extermination Palace all condensed their constellations to clash against Qin Wentian, shattering Qin Wentian's palm imprint. However, they were also forced back in an instant. What innate technique is this? The power is so terrifying. The crowd stared at Qin Wentian. The constellation around his gigantic body was also extremely terrifying. These newbies aren't simple at all. The spectators below were all taken aback when they saw this scene. Qin Wentian seemed to be exuding a fearsome battle art, as well as a demonic light. A terrifying ancient demon king appeared, revolving around his gigantic body. Those experts from the God Extermination Palace stared at Qin Wentian as trepidation appeared in their hearts. Ji Lanshan furrowed his brows. After which, a tyrannical aura gushed forth from him as he took a step forward. Staring at the other experts moving towards Qin Wentian, he spoke, "Leave this to me." He actually acted personally. The crowd was somewhat taken aback. Ji Lanshan, who was ranked on the Immortal Ascension rankings, actually wanted to personally deal with a 7th level ascendant. How interesting. Ji Lanshan, who cultivated the 1,000 Talismans Immortal Tome, instantly radiated boundless runic light as a constellation manifested above him. This constellation was akin to a boundless starry sky, and the boundless runic light flashed frenziedly, transforming into the form of an incomparably gigantic giant. Ji Lanshan's 1,000 Talismans constellation can be fused at will, creating many types of supremely powerful attacks. Ji Lanshan is precisely relying on the 1,000 Talismans Immortal Tome as well as his terrifying constellation, allowing him to be ranked on the Immortal Ascension rankings. His cultivation base hasn't reached the peak of celestial phenomenon yet, so his ranking still has the potential to rise. The spectators mused silently when they saw this scene. Ji Lanshan was a descendant of an immortal emperor. This 1,000 Talismans Immortal Tome was also a supremely powerful cultivation art cultivated by that immortal emperor. The 1,000 Talisman giant lifted its foot and stomped towards Qin Wentian. Numerous runic inscriptions interweaved together to form a gigantic cauldron as it smashed towards Qin Wentian. This gigantic cauldron shone with a golden light, capable of destroying everything in its path. Qin Wentian roared in rage when he felt the immense pressure. His arms expanded as he blasted out a terrifying star-seizing palm imprint. Cultivating the 10,000 laws record caused his attacks to be even more terrifying, truly possessing a heaven-shaking might, capable of destroying everything. Boom! The ancient cauldron collided with the palm imprint, directly shattering the palm imprint as it continued on its way towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian continuously blasted out with his palms, causing thunderous rumbling sounds to echo unceasingly as more palm imprints blasted out. However, the consumption of energy in his body was also extremely fast. Right now, Qin Wentian's attacking state could be said to be extremely powerful. In such a state, he had to expend a terrifying amount of energy to maintain it. It was only because he had cultivated 9 Yuanfus that he had several times more astral energy compared to cultivators at the same level as him. Ji Lanshan was 2 levels higher than him, the amount of astral energy in his body was naturally even more majestic. Qin Wentian finally shattered the gigantic cauldron. However, he only saw Ji Lanshan's body floating in the air, appearing in the center of his constellation. With a wave of his hand, a gigantic constellation wielded a 1,000 talisman sword that exuded a terrifying might as it directly cleaved down towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's countenance turned ashen. Ji Lanshan was the son of an immortal emperor and had outstanding talent. He was also a ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings and was extremely tyrannical. When he slashed out with his sword, it felt as though space itself was about to be severed. Qin Wendian waved both his hands as boundless suppressive silhouettes soared up into the air, frenziedly attacking the Thousand Talisman sword. However, they were all directly severed apart by a single slash. Not only that, the speed of that slash was extremely fast, instantly arriving before Qin Wendian. The ancient demon king on Qin Wendian's body roared in rage as he raised both his palms up to the sky, directly grabbing onto the gigantic sword. Puchi. The Thousand Talisman sword slashed down, the ancient demon king was also about to be severed. Qin Wendian explosively retreated, only to see the Thousand Talisman sword streaking past him. The sword light left behind a sword wound on his body, and even though his armor was covered in boundless runic light, fresh blood still flowed from the wound. Not bad, you are able to block a sword of mine. Ji Lanshan stood in his constellation, staring at Qin Wendian as he spoke with cold arrogance. A cold smile flickered in Qin Wendian's eyes. 9th level of celestial phenomenon, an expert on the Immortal Ascension rankings, and the son of an immortal emperor? Yet you are merely a so-so. Ji Lanshan started. After which he replied, how arrogant. But as someone who has already been defeated, how can you still be so arrogant? Truly ridiculous. The current you is still not my opponent. Qin Wendian was speechless. He turned his head only to see Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian in imminent danger. In fact, Jun Mengchen was already injured. If it wasn't for the fact that his opponent didn't kill him, he would have already died. Bang! Another explosive sound rang out. Jun Mengchen's body ruthlessly slammed into Qin Wendian. He coughed as his countenance turned ashen. He roared in rage, these bastards, let's fight it out with them. Why must you do this? A wise man submits to circumstances. Ji Lanshan coldly spoke, sweeping his gaze over to the others. How could these people withstand the attacks of the God Extermination Palace? It's over, we can't win against them. Little Rascal hopped onto Qin Wendian's shoulder as he mumbled in a depressed manner. There were injuries all over his body as well. You still don't know what's good for you. That crowned expert floated in the air as he coldly laughed. The experts from the God Extermination Palace got closer and closer, staring at Qin Wendian like they were staring at their prey. The strength of these newbies isn't bad, but sadly, they are all going to die here. The spectators below discussed. Even Ji Lanshan has personally acted, how can they not die? However, this is also the rule of the City of Ancient Emperors. How many geniuses from the outside world have to learn how to be low profile when they come here? Many descendants of immortal emperors have been snatched away by others before, they can only snatch them back after they grow stronger. Everyone laughed and chatted, but Qin Wendian and the others were filled with reluctance. Upon seeing the reluctance on their faces, Ji Lanshan stepped out once more as his Thousand Talisman sword appeared. He coldly laughed, seems like we are not ruthless enough. Since this is the case, let's leave a deeper impression on them. Boom! From Qin Wendian's body, a terrifying energy started to burn as a fearsome might engulfed the area, causing Ji Lanshan who was in front to stiffen. After which, a sword slaughter constellation manifested as boundless sword might flowed into Qin Wendian's body. Chapter 901. The aura radiating from Qin Wendian instantly grew incomparably powerful. His entire body was enveloped in a layer of resplendent white flames as runic inscriptions circulated around him. But what was even more terrifying was the sword chi contained within him. All the energy in his body was being ignited, as though it was all for the sake of unleashing that supreme sword might. Michem. Ji Lanshan's countenance changed as he stared at Qin Wendian in bewilderment. At this moment, Qin Wendian's aura skyrocketed, becoming even more powerful. This was especially so for the sword might radiating from him, it was madly growing stronger. What's going on? The countenances of the geniuses from the God Extermination Palace all changed as they stared at Qin Wendian with bewilderment in their eyes. Woo-woo. Little rascal on Qin Wentian's shoulder let out a whimper. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it spoke in a baby voice, "This bunch of bastards, kill them all." Purgatory in the air let out a sorrowful howl. It circled above Qin Wentian's head, and after which, its body transformed into a beam of blood-colored light that directly shot towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian seemed to understand the sorrow in Purgatory's voice. He felt extremely moved in his heart. Purgatory was a life form that was nurtured by Qin Wentian using his bloodline. Purgatory already had a boundless yearning for him. Now that it knew that Qin Wentian was igniting his energy, it actually summoned Qin Wentian to enter his bloodline and allow him to ignite his own energy. "How can I ignite your energy?" Qin Wentian silently mused. After which, swishing sounds rang out as a beam of blood-colored light shot up into the skies. Purgatory directly rushed into his body. However, Qin Wentian didn't want to borrow the energy of Purgatory. The him now was no longer the same as before. Back then, when he used the immortal vanquishing swordplay, there was a possibility that he might lose his life because his strength was too weak. But things were different now. His cultivation base was already at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon, and his bloodline was much stronger than before. "You're burning your own power to strengthen your attack." By now, Ji Lanshan had already understood what was going on. He frowned slightly. This brewing energy was extremely terrifying. Qin Wentian was burning himself. Such a sacred art was extremely powerful, but its weakness was also extremely obvious. Qin Wentian would first injure himself before injuring his opponent. After a single strike, he might be completely paralyzed and at the mercy of his opponent. Unless one was in a desperate situation, no one would use such a sacred art. Was this guy risking his life? Swish, swish, swish. Whistling sounds filled the air as boundless sword chi converged on Qin Wentian's body. Qin Wentian pointed his finger forward and pressed it into the air. In an instant, numerous terrifying formless swords appeared in front of his finger. These swords were formed from towering sword intense, and that terrifying lacerating force seemed to be able to tear the void apart. The entire world seemed to be enveloped by this sword intent, and everyone from the God Extermination Palace could feel the destructive force contained within. Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian both felt shock in their hearts as they stared at Qin Wentian. They didn't know that Qin Wentian had cultivated such a tyrannical sacred art. At this moment, Qin Wentian's body reverted back to his normal size. His entire body was clad in armor of flowing light as a pair of golden rock wings appeared behind his back. He stared at Ji Lanshan. Extreme beneath immortality. Ji Lanshan stared at Qin Wentian as he spoke. "Even if you ignite your own power to strengthen your attack, you still wouldn't be able to break through the barrier of immortality. Those below immortality are all mortals. My cultivation base at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon has already reached the peak of mortals. Even if you reached the extreme beneath immortality, you still wouldn't be able to threaten my life. At the same time, you are merely exhausting your own strength and won't be able to last long." The Immortal Foundation realm was a watershed. For those below Immortal Realm, it was impossible for them to reach the Immortal Foundation realm just by relying on secret arts. At the very most, they would only be able to reach the extreme beneath immortality. The Immortal Vanquishing Swordplay was an Immortal Foundation art. Those at the Immortal Foundation realm would be able to unleash the strongest might. However, Qin Wentian hadn't reached the Immortal Foundation realm yet. Hence, it was impossible for him to unleash might that surpassed immortals. Ji Lanshan was right. The experts on the Immortal Ascension rankings were all geniuses who stood at the very peak of the immortal realms. They themselves already stood at the peak beneath immortals. Hence, this ranking was named the Immortal Ascension Rankings. Ji Lanshan's aura gushed forth frenziedly as his 1,000 talismans constellation manifested. Countless runes transformed into a dazzling 1,000 talismans shield that revolved around him, as though it was to defend against Qin Wentian's attacks. At the same time, his 1,000 talismans sword remained in his hand as he stared at Qin Wentian. "Just give up. If you want me to give up, I have no way to control the might of this art." You said that the city of ancient emperors doesn't need immortal ranked weapons. I can do that. However, once this art is unleashed, I won't be able to control it. If you force me to fight, I will definitely unleash it. At that time, whether you can block it or not, you will have to ask yourself. Qin Wendian calmly spoke. The energy in his body was still burning as a stifling sword might gushed forth. All the spectators could clearly feel it. Even for the spectators on the ground, they felt as though they were enveloped by this sword might. Their entire bodies were filled with boundless sword qi, truly at the extreme beneath immortality. Although Ji Lanshan wasn't too far away from immortality, in truth, he was still quite a distance away from it. If not, how could he be ranked 321st in the Immortal Ascension rankings? There were still 320 people in front of him. Only those people in front of him had the qualifications to say that they had come into contact with the extreme beneath immortality. Sharp whistling sounds rang out unceasingly. That was the sound of the sword intent grinding against the 1,000 talismans. Such ear-piercing sounds caused Ji Lanshan to fall silent. Qin Wendian's finger was placed in the air. It was as though the moment his finger landed, the boundless sword might would be able to condense into a single sword. There was only a single sword, but the might of this single sword strike was the most terrifying. I can drag things out with you. But how long can you burn your energy for? Ji Lanshan coldly spoke. You guys sit on Little Rascal's back. Little Rascal and I have a telepathic connection, he knows what I'm thinking about. Qin Wendian transmitted his voice to Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian. The two of them nodded and sat on Little Rascal's back. Bzz. Qin Wendian stepped out step by step, moving towards Ji Lanshan. This scene caused Ji Lanshan to furrow his brows. When he saw Qin Wendian advancing towards him, he actually took a step back. A cold smile could be seen on Qin Wendian's face. A raging wind gusted by. The shadow of a golden rock appeared around Qin Wendian, resembling a heavenly rock. He instantly turned and sped towards another expert from the God Extermination Palace. Careful. Ji Lanshan spoke. However, the speed of Qin Wendian's golden rock form was simply too fast. In just an instant, he already appeared before one of the experts. His finger pressed out in the air and in just an instant, that expert only felt his entire body being enveloped by a supreme sword intent. If Qin Wendian's finger pressed down, that expert would die on the spot. Little Rascal indeed had a telepathic connection with Qin Wendian. When Qin Wendian first moved, Little Rascal had already followed closely behind Qin Wendian, guarding against the experts from the God Extermination Palace. This is a robbery. Hand over all your interspatial rings. Little Rascal's immature voice rang out, sounding somewhat adorable. That baleful body of his swayed as he appeared before that expert and stretched out his claws. This scene was somewhat comical, but that expert had no way to laugh. His life was being controlled by Little Rascal. Behind him, a powerful aura gushed over. Although Qin Wendian didn't turn his head, he directly spoke, I don't wish to unleash this attack. Don't touch my bottom line or I don't know what the consequences would be. As the sound of his voice faded, Ji Lanshan and the experts from the God Extermination Palace all halted their steps. That expert who was being threatened turned ashen, he took out all his interspatial rings and placed them in Little Rascal's claws. Since he was captured, he could only admit defeat. Why are you so stupid? Little Rascal stared at that young man as he lazily cursed. His other claw directly slammed out, slamming into that young man's body. Cracking sounds rang out unceasingly as that young man was directly flung through the air. It was unknown how many bones in that young man's body had been broken by that attack. Impudent. Ji Lanshan coldly spoke. Little Rascal turned his gaze over. Who told you guys to bully this Bao Bao with numbers? This demonic beast is interesting. The experts below laughed. Qin Wendian glanced at the experts from the God Extermination Palace only to see that all of them were radiating tyrannical auras, as though they were prepared for another sneak attack from him. Even at this stage, you are still trying to infuriate us. I can't help but to say that you are the truly stupid one. Ji Lanshan stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't hear anything and directly climbed onto Little Rascal's back. Little Rascal's wings flapped as it soared into the distance. Qin Wentian was still facing the experts from the God Extermination Palace. The sword might radiating from him was as strong as ever, enveloping this entire space. Do you think you can escape? Ji Lanshan and the others stepped out. A group of experts from the God Extermination Palace sped through the air, chasing after them. He truly wanted to see how long Qin Wentian could last. A group of experts sped through the city of ancient emperors. The energy in Qin Wentian's body burned unceasingly as Ji Lanshan and the others followed closely behind. In fact, they didn't even retract their constellations, preparing to launch an attack at any moment. Ji Lanshan of the Immortal Ascension rankings led the experts from the God Extermination Palace to chase after three of us who just entered the city of ancient emperors. You guys can really afford to lose so much face. Qin Wentian mocked. His voice rumbled through the air, echoing through the city below. After that, countless people inclined their heads and stared at the sky. Everywhere they passed by, there would be experts with expressions of interest on their faces. Ji Lanshan of the Immortal Ascension rankings actually chased after a few newbies. Not only that, he doesn't even dare to act. Many geniuses from the city of ancient emperors soared up into the air, following after Qin Wentian and the others. It was as though they were all people who wanted to see the world in chaos. Ji Lanshan's countenance gradually turned sinister. The number of geniuses spectating grew more and more, causing him to feel as though he was about to lose face. If you continue to flee, don't blame me for being ruthless when you exhaust all your energy. Ji Lanshan roared in rage, his voice filled with a threatening intent. Qin Wentian was facing the experts who were chasing after him. His countenance was cold, and his eyes gleamed with sharpness. He didn't expect that he would encounter people from the God Extermination Palace the moment he arrived here. Today, I shall make your God Extermination Palace lose all face. Qin Wentian icily spoke. Little Rascal, get down. Little Rascal descended from the air, directly landing on a vast area on the ground. This scene caused expressions of interest to appear on the faces of the spectators. Could it be that this young man who ignited his own energy to unleash his sword might still have a trump card? Chapter 902. Qin Wentian descended from the air. His entire body shone with a terrifying resplendent light. With a rumbling sound, his feet landed on the ground and instantly, the crowd only saw numerous runic inscriptions appearing on the ground where Qin Wentian stood, instantly transforming into a diagram. A fearsome astral energy gushed forth as a powerful suppression aura permeated the atmosphere. Michem. Ji Lanshan floated in the air. Before this, he wasn't in a hurry to act because he knew that Qin Wentian would sooner or later exhaust all of his energy. It wouldn't be too late to act at that time, there was no need for him to directly attack and infuriate Qin Wentian. But at this moment, Qin Wentian chose to descend to the ground. Divine inscriptions could be seen beneath his feet. Qin Wentian's constellation appeared. Numerous gigantic hammers appeared in the air, smashing downwards unceasingly, causing the earth to tremble. Very swiftly, a gigantic diagram appeared on the ground. This diagram was three-dimensional, and there seemed to be an incomparably tyrannical energy gushing forth from it. Inscribing divine inscriptions. Every time he acts, he would be able to inscribe powerful divine inscriptions on the ground. He is also a divine inscriptionist. The experts here all had expressions of interest on their faces, they didn't expect Qin Wentian to have such an ability. He ignited his own energy to unleash a powerful attack, causing the experts from the God Extermination Palace to not dare to act recklessly while he himself started to inscribe formations. Should we attack and interrupt him? Someone asked. The experts from the God Extermination Palace all stood in different directions, staring at Ji Lanshan. He was the pillar of support. You guys retreat, let me handle it. Ji Lanshan waved his hands as he spoke in a magnanimous manner. If it was others in his place, they wouldn't be able to withstand Qin Wendian's immortal vanquishing swordplay. Only he had the strength to defend against it. Right. The experts from the God Extermination Palace nodded. Since Qin Wendian was a divine inscriptionist grandmaster, they couldn't allow him to continue inscribing formations. Ji Lanshan stood arrogantly in the air. The terrifying 1,000 talismans on his body flickered, illuminating the sky. The 1,000 talismans sword was formed from countless interweaving runes as it directly slashed out. That sword strike that could cleave the heavens and earth apart slashed towards Qin Wendian. They couldn't give Qin Wendian any more time. Qin Wendian soared up into the air. His finger pressed downwards and in an instant, a boundless amount of sword chi erupted forth, transforming into a supreme windstorm. Boundless sword might converged at the same time as the fearsome windstorm gushed forth, slashing apart the void. The 1,000 talisman sword was directly slashed apart by Qin Wendian's supreme sword might. Qin Wendian continued forward, his eyes flashed with madness as he dashed towards Ji Lanshan. The sword chi in his hand had yet to dissipate. Ji Lanshan frowned as he retreated. At this moment, the threat of Qin Wendian was too great. There was no need for him to risk his life against him. Rumbling sounds rang out as the hammers continued smashing into the ground. An incomparably gigantic diagram gradually formed as a surge of energy shot up into the sky. It was as though a divine-like giant stood up from the diagram, its entire body shone with boundless light. This is... The countenances of those experts from the God Extermination Palace turned incredibly unsightly. What a powerful divine inscription's grand formation, it seemed somewhat similar to Qin Wendian's constellation. And at this moment, Qin Wendian coldly laughed as he stared at Ji Lanshan. After which, he retreated as the sword chi in his hand gradually dissipated. Momentarily, the energy in his body stopped burning, but he had already expended more than half of his energy. He could only feel his entire body weakening. After returning to the center of the divine inscription's grand formation, Qin Wendian inclined his head as rumbling sounds echoed out. His body grew to a size of 700 meters, and when he released his astral souls, it was as though he had fused as one with the divine inscription's grand formation. Even though we just entered the city of ancient emperors, the highest cultivation base we have is only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon. Your God Extermination Palace won't be able to do anything to us. Qin Wendian arrogantly spoke, his voice echoing through the air. The countenances of Ji Lanshan and the experts from the God Extermination Palace were extremely unsightly to behold. This battle has already reached such a stage. Ji Lanshan, who was a ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings, was leading his group of experts in pursuit. If they still couldn't capture Qin Wendian and the others, they would truly lose all their face. Ji Lanshan walked step by step towards Qin Wendian. At this moment, Qin Wendian had already retracted the might of the immortal vanquishing swordplay. The threat he posed was greatly reduced, allowing the experts from the God Extermination Palace to surround him. Since you guys refuse to listen to reason, we can only act. Ji Lanshan spoke with cold arrogance. Long-range attacks. Without the threat of the immortal vanquishing swordplay, everyone moved closer and gathered their constellations as a terrifying tempest engulfed the area. Kill! That crowned expert roared in rage. A gigantic long spear directly pierced through the air, shooting towards Qin Wendian and the others. Another expert blasted out countless golden fist imprints, causing rumbling sounds to echo in the air as all of them blasted towards Qin Wendian and the others. There were also experts who blasted out a myriad of arms. There were also experts who blasted out life-seizing palm imprints that blotted out the sky. All sorts of chaotic chi currents swept over, wanting to destroy Qin Wendian and the others. Ji Lanshan's countenance was cold. His 1,000 talisman constellation manifested a terrifying 1,000 talisman imprint. With a roar of rage, this incomparably gigantic 1,000 talisman imprint shone with a destructive light as it blasted towards Qin Wendian. In an extremely short instant, all sorts of terrifying attacks blasted towards Qin Wendian. From this, one could see that this time around, Qin Wendian had truly enraged the experts of the God Extermination Palace. If Qin Wendian and the others didn't have the strength to defend against such an attack, they might really die here unless they took out their immortal rank treasures. Qin Wendian roared in rage. His terrifying body stomped on the ground as a feeling of the heavens collapsing and the earth shattering could be felt. Boundless runic light flowed as a myriad of golden bodies shot up into the sky, revolving around Qin Wendian's body. At this moment, Qin Wendian and the gigantic divinity shadow in the air seemed to have fused together as one. The boundless golden bodies took him as the center. Go! Qin Wendian roared in rage. Momentarily, the violet golden figures all blasted out. At this instant, Qin Wendian was completely engulfed by the violet golden light. Boom, boom, boom. The heavens and earth trembled as the tyrannical attacks clashed against each other in the air, exuding a destructive might. Qin Wendian stared at Ji Lanshan's attack as he lifted his palms and blasted them out. A supreme suppressive might clashed against the incomparably gigantic Thousand Talisman imprint, causing both attacks to explode in the air. Qin Wendian's constellation seemed to have completely fused together with the divine inscription's grand formation. This entire space seemed to have transformed into a starry sky as countless golden figures manifested, floating in the air, causing those who saw this scene to sigh in amazement. What a powerful divine inscription's grand formation. Seems like this newbie isn't simple. He's only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon, yet he dares to contend against the God Extermination Palace and face an expert on the Immortal Ascension rankings, Ji Lanshan. If he also breaks through to the 9th level of celestial phenomenon, he would definitely be ranked in the Immortal Ascension rankings. All sorts of chaotic attacks blasted towards Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian lifted his palm and grabbed out in a certain direction. The countless golden figures moved together with his palm, destroying everything in its path. That terrifying palm imprint directly blasted towards an expert from the God Extermination Palace. That expert roared in rage as he resisted, but as the palm imprint slammed down, a thunderous boom rang out as his body was directly flung through the air, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Each of his attacks are comparable to the 9th level of celestial phenomenon. Borrowing the power of the divine inscription's grand formation, this young man's strength is so overwhelming that he can directly be ranked in the Immortal Ascension rankings. However, I don't think the Immortal Ascension rankings would consider the strength he gained after borrowing the power of the divine inscription's grand formation. The battle here was extremely fascinating. More and more experts gathered over. Ji Lanshan and the other experts from the God Extermination Palace unceasingly attacked Qin Wendian, yet no one was able to take down Qin Wendian and the others. On the contrary, because the experts from the God Extermination Palace were caught off guard, they were blasted far away by Qin Wendian's attacks and suffered heavy injuries. How powerful, what a bastard! Little rascal's eyes shone with a bright light when he saw Qin Wendian's divine might. Senior brother Qin, did you comprehend this divine inscription's grand formation using your own constellation? His comprehension abilities are simply too powerful, I'm far from being his match. Jun Mengchen spoke in a low voice. What was laughable was that despite his combat prowess, he actually couldn't help Qin Wendian at all in the city of ancient emperors. Seems like he still had to work hard to raise his cultivation base. He cultivated the 10,000 laws record. I heard him say that the 10,000 laws record can allow him to better comprehend the energy he cultivates. In addition to his high comprehension abilities and powerful divine inscriptions, it's not strange for him to be able to achieve such a feat, Zi Qingxian spoke in a low voice. The chaotic attacks didn't stop for a long time. The experts from the God Extermination Palace had no way to defeat Qin Wendian. This was because when he borrowed the power of the divine inscription's grand formation, the consumption of energy on Qin Wendian's body was extremely small. Yet, his attacks were so powerful that it was ridiculous. Ji Lanshan has suffered a setback. At this moment, a young man in the surroundings laughed as he stared at the battle. He can't even take down a 7th level ascendant. No matter what, this Ji Lanshan is still a descendant of an immortal emperor. He has truly lost all face this time around. The spectators discussed. At this moment, several extraordinary silhouettes flew over from another direction. Each and every one of them was breathtakingly beautiful. This was especially so for the one in the center. It was a female. This female was clad in a resplendent tight-fitting red robe, perfectly accentuating her alluring figure. In addition, she was filled with vitality, so breathtaking that no one dared to look directly into her beautiful eyes. This female's skin was whiter than snow, as though a gentle breeze could break it. Her figure was graceful, and when she appeared, countless gazes turned to her. It was as though the attraction of this battle wasn't as great as this female's. She actually appeared here. Someone exclaimed in shock. Xiaolin Yue is truly beautiful. Sadly, there are so many people pursuing her that they could form a long line. The Xiao sect she established is filled with flower protectors, with experts as common as the clouds. Just the number of rankers on the Immortal Ascension rankings alone is already over 10. Naturally, Xiaolin Yue isn't just a flower vase, her personal strength is the strongest in the Xiao sect. I wonder what sort of character would be worthy of such a beauty. Someone sighed. Xiaolin Yue, the daughter of the Xiao Emperor of the northern region of the Immortal Realms. She was a famous beauty and was ranked number 6 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. It was unknown how many males would feel ashamed when they saw her. At this moment, Xiaolin Yue was actually paying attention to this battle. Chapter 903. The appearance of a ranker in the top 10 of the Immortal Ascension rankings would naturally cause a commotion. Everyone would instantly notice them. In addition, Xiaolin Yue was not only a ranker in the top 10, she was also a supreme beauty. However, no one dared to strike up a conversation with her. Just the young men beside Xiaolin Yue alone were all rankers on the Immortal Ascension rankings, and their rankings were higher than Ji Lanshan. This Ji Lanshan actually dares to establish his own sect. He's simply courting humiliation. At this moment, a young man spoke, his tone filled with disdain for the God Extermination Palace. Although his words were ear-piercing, the truth was that the God Extermination Palace only had one ranker, Ji Lanshan. In front of a power like the Xiao sect, there was simply no way they could compare. However, this fellow's formations aren't weak at all, he's actually only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon. A person stared at Qin Wentian with interest. Lin Yue, are you interested in this man? The young man beside Xiaolin Yue asked. Xiaolin Yue's countenance was calm, there were no fluctuations in her beautiful eyes. She quietly stared at the battle before her as she replied, let's watch first. The few of them nodded and accompanied Xiaolin Yue to watch the battle. The battle continued unceasingly. Qin Wentian grew more and more ferocious as he fought, not showing any signs of weakness at all. The might of his formations towered up into the sky, and on the other hand, other than Ji Lanshan who could defend against the attacks of the formations, the other experts from the God Extermination Palace were all struggling. If this continued, they still wouldn't be able to take down Qin Wentian. Ji Lanshan, that's enough. At this moment, a young man beside Xiaolin Yue crossed his arms in front of his chest as he spoke. A moment later, Ji Lanshan retreated, ceasing the battle. The experts from the God Extermination Palace also retreated. Qin Wentian also didn't continue and the violent battle abruptly ceased. Ji Lanshan turned his gaze to Xiaolin Yue and the others. His countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. This battle was truly too embarrassing. Not only did you fail to take down a newcomer, you even injured your own people. Ji Lanshan, if I were you, I wouldn't continue to stay here. The young man with his hands crossed in front of his chest said with a faint smile. His tone seemed to contain some mockery. Ji Lanshan's gaze was sharp as he stared at the person who spoke. What does it have to do with you? Of course it has nothing to do with me. I'm not the one who lost face, the man replied indifferently. Xiaolin Yue turned her gaze onto Ji Lanshan as she spoke, you guys can leave first. Ji Lanshan glanced at Xiaolin Yue. Although he was a ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings, it was impossible for him to contend against Xiaolin Yue and her group. His eyes flashed with rage as he turned to Qin Wentian. I, Ji Lanshan, will remember the matters today. Are you intending to gather everyone from the God Exterminating Palace to deal with me? Qin Wendian coldly replied. Everyone could easily understand the sarcasm in his words. The God Extermination Palace had to mobilize all the experts in their sect to deal with a 7th-level ascendant. Retreat. Ji Lanshan didn't have the face to stay here any longer. He gave the order to leave, and at that moment, the experts from the God Extermination Palace all left. A stray dog. The immature voice of Little Rascal rang out. Momentarily, the experts from the God Extermination Palace all had black lines on their faces. They wanted nothing more than to cook Little Rascal and eat him up. Qin Wendian's silhouette reverted back to his normal size. The robes he wore shimmered with astral light. This was the robes of a divine weapon and was extremely flexible. However, he still took out a long robe from his interspatial ring and donned it. After which, he turned his gaze to Xiao Yue. What a beautiful woman! Qin Wendian silently praised in his heart. This Xiao Yue was indeed a rare beauty. Although her perfect figure was extremely alluring, that demeanor she exuded made it so that no one dared to have any thoughts of blasphemy. Her eyes were extremely beautiful, and when she stared at Qin Wendian, it was as though her gaze could hook away the souls of people. Your proficiency in formations isn't bad, and your combat prowess should be very strong as well. It's just that your cultivation base is on the lower side. If it wasn't for your formations, I'm afraid you would be at a disadvantage against Ji Lanshan. Xiao Yue continued walking forward. Her steps were graceful, causing people to be mesmerized. Her eyes were fixed on Qin Wendian. She then spoke to Qin Wendian. If this is your first time in the City of Ancient Emperors, why don't you all join a power? My Xiao sect is sufficient to protect you. If you all join, Ji Lanshan wouldn't dare to harass you. Xiao Yue actually took the initiative to invite him. Seems like she values his capabilities. A look of bewilderment appeared on someone's face. It was extremely hard to reject an invitation from a beauty, right? Hee, even I don't have such treatment. That young man with his arms crossed in front of his chest spoke in a low voice. Lin Yue is interested in his formations. However, in the City of Ancient Emperors, strength is still the most important thing. Formations are just a minor Dao. A young man standing at the side spoke, his tone filled with coldness. Xiao sect. Qin Wendian recalled the information in the jade slip. The Xiao sect seemed to be a sect founded by the daughter of the Xiao Emperor, Xiao Yue. The beauty before him should be none other than Xiao Yue, one of the 3 beauties. Before this, that young woman said that because Qing Er's ranking surpassed her, Xiao Yue had always wanted to fight with Qing Er to prove herself. Hence, Qin Wendian paid special attention to Xiao Yue's information. Such a breathtaking beauty was actually surpassed by Qing Er in the Immortal Ascension rankings. Seems like Qing Er was getting more and more outstanding. In the past, I was the one who delayed Qing Er's cultivation. Qin Wendian silently mused. When they were in the particle world, Qing had always been by his side, silently protecting him. Clearly, this had greatly delayed his own cultivation. The path of cultivation wasn't something that could be accomplished in a single step, one had to truly immerse themselves in it. Qing had an extremely rare physique, and there was also a mysterious and powerful energy in her body. Qin Wendian didn't find it strange at all that her performance was outstanding after arriving in the immortal realms. Before this, it was precisely because we rejected the God Extermination Palace that we were pursued by them. Zi Qingxian spoke. However, Xiao Yue didn't even look at her. Her beautiful eyes were still fixated on Qin Wendian, that young man who dared to look her in the eyes. From those eyes, Xiao Yue could actually see a hint of emotion. Although she felt some disdain in her heart, she was also secretly satisfied. There were many people who were conquered by her beauty, and this young man before her was merely one of them. Many geniuses were willing to follow her the moment they laid eyes on her. And because of this, her Xiao sect was ranked within the top 3 in the City of Ancient Emperors. Xiao Yue naturally wouldn't know that this hint of emotion wasn't because of her. It was because after looking at her, Qin Wendian was reminded of Qing Er. How is it? Xiao Lingyue confidently asked. A faint smile could be seen on her lips, further accentuating her charisma. For those who join a power in the city of ancient emperors, there shouldn't be any relationship after we leave the city, right? Qin Wentian asked. Qin Wentian's words caused many in the surroundings to laugh silently. Seems like this young man who just arrived here had no way to resist Xiao Lingyue's charm. Naturally, this is only limited to the city of ancient emperors. In fact, if you want to leave the Xiao sect within the city, you can do so at any time. After all, the city of ancient emperors is a training ground, you can do as you please. Xiao Lingyue spoke. Qin Wentian nodded. After that, he turned to Zi Qingxian and Jun Mengchen as he transmitted his voice. Xiao Lingyue is searching for Qing. If I join the Xiao sect, I'll be able to find Qing at the first instant. I'll choose to join temporarily. What about you guys? I'll follow senior brother Qin. If you want to join, I'll join as well. Jun Mengchen replied. Zi Qingxian pondered for a moment. Her beautiful eyes turned to Qin Wentian as she sighed in her heart. Seems like Qin Wentian's feelings for Princess Qing were extremely deep. She also transmitted her voiceover, "We're together." Thank you. A smile appeared in Qin Wentian's eyes. The three of them exchanged glances and smiled. After that, Qin Wentian turned to Xiao Lingyue and spoke, "We're willing to join the Xiao sect." Seems like they still have no way to resist Xiao Lingyue's charm. But this is also normal. Xiao Lingyue took the initiative to invite them. To newcomers who just entered the city of ancient emperors, this is already a great honor. The spectators from afar started discussing. The experts from the Xiao sect all had different expressions on their faces. Welcome. Xiao Lingyue smiled at Qin Wentian. After that, she turned and spoke, "Let's return to the Xiao sect first. You guys can introduce the Xiao sect to me. Senior brother, this Xiao Lingyue is extremely arrogant. She's one of the three most famous beauties in the city of ancient emperors. I've finally met her." Jun Mengchen transmitted his voiceover. The three of them lifted their feet and followed after Xiao Lingyue. Right now, several experts from the Xiao sect were staring at them. That arrogant young man glanced at them and spoke, "The Xiao sect doesn't accept mediocre people. If you guys are too weak, you will be expelled from the Xiao sect." After speaking, he turned and walked side by side with Xiao Lingyue. "Lingyue, I really don't understand why you recruited the three of them so easily. There's no need for you to understand." Xiao Lingyue calmly replied, her words causing the arrogant young man to shake his head. What an arrogant fellow. Jun Mengchen coldly snorted as he stared at the back of that young man. His name is Xia Qianhan, he has always been like this. There's no need for you guys to mind him too much. That young man with his arms crossed in front of his chest laughed. Staring at Qin Wentian and the others, he continued, "Let me introduce myself. My name is Li Yu, Yu as in Jade. But clearly, I'm a man. Haha, if I didn't see you, I would really think that's a woman's name." Jun Mengchen laughed. Number 81 on the Immortal Ascension rankings, Li Yu. Qin Wentian mumbled, his eyes flashing with sharpness. Xia Qianhan, number 96 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. Your memory isn't bad. Li Yu laughed. However, Xia Qianhan's words aren't wrong. The Xiao sect doesn't accept mediocre people. Although Xiao Lingyue is a woman, her judgment is extremely high. She wouldn't even be interested in ordinary characters. If your performance is too weak in the future, you guys would definitely be expelled from the Xiao sect. My performance is too weak. Would the Xiao sect fight against other powers? Qin Wentian asked. That's very rare. After all, the Xiao sect is one of the top 3 powers in the city of ancient emperors. Ordinary powers wouldn't dare to antagonize them. However, I'm sure you guys don't know that the outskirts of the city of ancient emperors are filled with secret realms and treasures. There are even legendary treasures left behind by ancient emperors. Chapter 904. The Shao sect was one of the top 3 powers in the city of ancient emperors. They had hundreds of geniuses and a large number of buildings. Behind them were green mountains and in front of them was a flowing river. It was like a small city, with mountains on one side and rivers on the other. Within the Shao sect, the air was fresh and tranquil. Qin Wentian had already been here for several days, but he wasn't too familiar with the people here. There was also no one to introduce him to. Shaolin Yue had always been searching for Qing Air. The power of the Shao sect was so great that it was much easier compared to him searching alone. And once Shaolin Yue found Qing Air, he would naturally be the first to receive the news. And to Qin Wentian, any place was a good place for him to cultivate. It was the same in the Shao sect as well. In a quiet ancient courtyard, under the green mountains, Qin Wentian sat cross-legged in a cultivation ground. The space around him was illusory, as though there were countless constellations in the sky. In Qin Wentian's palms, a gigantic rune bone could be seen. This rune bone shone with boundless runic light, and the runic patterns on it were extremely mysterious. In this space, the shadow of an incomparably gigantic wind rock appeared. This shadow enveloped Qin Wentian, and although there was no wind blowing in, there was still the feeling of a raging wind howling. Qin Wentian closed his eyes in cultivation. Boundless runic inscriptions appeared on his body, causing the space around him to be illusory. He was currently circulating the Myriad Laws record. During the cultivation process of the Myriad Laws record, a miraculous space would be created, suitable for the myriad of laws. The higher one's comprehension, the more they would be able to see. The space around him expanded unceasingly as boundless runic inscriptions flashed. The rune bone in Qin Wentian's hand floated in the air, glowing brightly. Momentarily, the runic inscriptions on the rune bone leaped out, transforming into numerous wind rocks. It was as though there was a supreme wind rock movement technique appearing in this space, imprinting itself into Qin Wentian's sea of consciousness. Not only that, the runes within the wind rock rune bone flowed out, transforming into a peerless attack that possessed boundless might. On the surface of the small rune bone, there seemed to be countless mysterious runes engraved on it. Each rune contained a powerful might, causing people to feel the supreme might of the wind rock that once ruled over the void. Qin Wentian immersed himself within, comprehending the power within. Borrowing the 10,000 laws record, he merged his own power within, making it his own. After a period of time, the sound of footsteps drifted over from outside the courtyard. Zi Qingxian stood outside and saw that the person who came was none other than the Shao sect leader, Shaolin Yue, as well as several other experts of the Shao sect. "Where is Qin Wentian?" Xia Qianhan, who was beside Shaolin Yue, asked Zi Qingxian. Zi Qingxian furrowed her brows as she replied, "He's cultivating." "Call him over. Ling Yu is looking for him." Xia Qianhan spoke, his words causing Zi Qingxian to feel extremely unhappy in her heart. This Xia Qianhan really treated them like subordinates, there was no respect in his tone at all. "He's cultivating." Zi Qingxian repeated. Xia Qianhan's brows twitched as he glanced at Zi Qingxian. "Since you've joined the Shao sect, you should know your own position." Zi Qingshuan's frown deepened. They only joined the Shao sect because they were invited by Shaolin Yue, they didn't beg to join. In addition, even without the protection of the Shao sect, Qin Wentian himself was able to defeat Ji Lanshan. This Xia Qianhan of the Immortal Ascension rankings was truly arrogant. "Xia Qianhan, don't scare other beauties. No matter what, they are all members of our Shao sect." Li Yu laughed. Although they were both rankers on the Immortal Ascension rankings, Li Yu's personality was much gentler. "What's the matter?" At this moment, Qin Wentian and Jun Mengchen walked out together. Shaolin Yue smiled at Qin Wentian. "I have something to discuss with you. Is it convenient for us to enter?" "Sure." Qin Wentian nodded. "You guys wait here for me." Shaolin Yue walked forward, entering the courtyard together with Qin Wentian. Xia Qianhan furrowed his brows as a look of unhappiness flashed in his eyes. Shaolin Yue and Qin Wentian came to the cultivation grounds together. Xiaolin Yue took out a scroll and passed it to Qin Wentian. Take a look at these diagrams. Qin Wentian received it. On this diagram, there was a resplendent palace that exuded an incomparable majesty. In front of the palace, there was a passageway filled with thistles and thorns. There was also an ancient pathway that was engraved with many complicated runic inscriptions, incomparably marvelous. What is this? Qin Wentian asked. These runic inscriptions were extremely profound and were all extremely powerful divine inscriptions, capable of countless transformations. Even the slightest mistake could result in destruction. The city of ancient emperors is the ruins of an ancient emperor. The city of ancient emperors is the ruins of an ancient emperor. This isn't a rumor, it's the truth. This palace might very well be the emperor palace of an ancient emperor. Initially, it was hidden in the darkness, unable to see the light of day. However, after many generations of exploration, many people paid the price of their lives. Up until now, the ruins of this emperor palace can already be seen with the naked eye. It's just that up until now, no one has been able to enter it. These divine inscriptions are the greatest obstruction. Xiaolin Yue explained. Qin Wentian laughed. He wasn't a fool, he instantly knew the reason why Xiaolin Yue invited him to join the Shao sect. However, he also had his own reasons for joining the Shao sect, so it wasn't a big deal. If he had no value, why would Xiaolin Yue invite him to join the Shao sect? Just from the diagrams, these divine inscriptions are extremely complicated. But if one doesn't personally experience it, it's impossible to know if they can be unraveled. Qin Wentian straightforwardly spoke. Okay, let's head there directly then. Xiaolin Yue spoke, her beautiful eyes gleaming with sharpness, exuding a heroic aura. If not, as a female, it would be hard for her to have such accomplishments. The number 6 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings wasn't a position anyone could ascend to. Sure. Qin Wentian nodded. Xiaolin Yue smiled sweetly at Qin Wentian. Your attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions are extremely high. If you can do it, I, Xiaolin Yue, will definitely not mistreat you. Xiaolin Yue's smile grew even more radiant. She turned and spoke, let's move out. However, there are many experts there, including many rankers on the Immortal Ascension rankings. Our greatest opponents are those from the Twin Stars Alliance. Their alliance leaders are 2 brothers, and both of them are ranked at the top of the Immortal Ascension rankings. The elder brother is ranked number 4, while the younger brother has extraordinary attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions. Xiaolin Yue turned and walked out, yet her fragrance still lingered in the air. Qin Wentian smiled lightly, this Xiaolin Yue's charm was truly unrivaled. Every action of hers was filled with an indescribable charm. She only needed to act a little more intimate with you, and she would be able to create a bewitching charm that mesmerized people. Following Xiaolin Yue out of the courtyard, Qin Wentian could clearly sense the unfriendly gazes of several people staring at him. However, he didn't mind it. He spoke to Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian, help me look after little rascal. Don't need me? Jun Mengchen asked. No need. Qin Wentian shook his head. Even Xiaolin Yue personally went to the ruins of the Emperor Palace. Given the current strength of Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian, it was still insufficient. There would definitely be experts as common as clouds there. Let's move out. Xiaolin Yue spoke. With a single step, the group of them soared up into the air. Xiaolin Yue was clad in luxurious red robes, exuding a sense of nobility and elegance. Their speed was extremely fast as they sped towards their destination. To the north of the city of ancient emperors, there was an ice field that seemed to be a boundless world of glaciers. The air here was filled with an incomparably mystical energy, making it impossible to fly in the air. In this world of glaciers, there was a snow-white emperor palace, pure and untainted by even a speck of dust. However, it gave off a faintly discernible aura. Before the emperor palace, there was an ancient pathway that exuded an ancient aura. It was as though this pathway was forcefully opened up by the later generations. Only after generations of hard work did they manage to see the ruins of the Emperor Palace. Over here, there were many experts gathered here. From afar, a whistling sound drifted over. These experts all inclined their heads, only to see the silhouette of a beautiful maiden. Shaolin Yue is here. Many people recognized Shaolin Yue with a single glance. Since she brought experts from the Shao sect here, it seemed like she was extremely interested in this Emperor Palace. Shaolin Yue. A young man inclined his head and stared at Shaolin Yue as he laughed. Why haven't you given up yet? I've said it before, if you marry me or my elder brother, we will bring you into the Emperor Palace. You can just sit there and enjoy the fruits of our labor. Xian Xing, how dare you? Xia Qianhan coldly berated. Xia Qianhan, you don't have the qualifications to speak to me. The young man turned his gaze to Xia Qianhan as he continued, Shaolin Yue, you are the daughter of the Shao Emperor, while my father is the Xian Emperor. You can be said to be a perfect match for each other. The Twin Stars Alliance my elder brother and I established can also suppress your Shao sect. If you don't like me, you can marry my elder brother. In the city of ancient emperors, very few people dared to antagonize Shaolin Yue, who was ranked number 6 in the Immortal Ascension rankings. However, the two alliance leaders of the Twin Stars Alliance were undoubtedly an exception. The two alliance leaders of the Twin Stars Alliance were known as the Twin Prides. They were the sons of the Xian Emperor. Xian Yang was extremely powerful, ranked number 4 in the Immortal Ascension rankings. Xian Xing's attainments in divine inscriptions were extremely high as well, ranked number 27 in the Immortal Ascension rankings. These two brothers could be said to be dragons among men. In the city of ancient emperors, the strength of the Twin Stars Alliance was on par with the Shao sect. There were often conflicts between the two. The alliance leader of the Twin Stars Alliance, Xian Xing, would often joke about Shaolin Yue, saying that he wanted her to become the daughter-in-law of his father, the Xian Emperor. You. Xia Qianhan turned ashen. However, Shaolin Yue waved her hands and smiled at Xian Xing. Xian Xing, you can't even defeat me. What qualifications do you have to marry me? This is only temporary. I can't defeat you, but Xian Yang can. I have no objections to you marrying him. Xian Xing laughed. Humph, Xian Xing, you can be arrogant after you enter the Emperor Palace. Shaolin Yue coldly laughed. After which, she turned to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, take a look at the runic diagram below. Can you break it? Qin Wentian's gaze had already landed on the ancient pathway ahead. The runic diagram here was incomparably profound, and he actually had no way to break it in a short period of time. He couldn't help but to furrow his brows as he immersed his consciousness into it. Ha, so it turns out that you've invited a helper over. But with just him. In the city of ancient emperors, if I can't break the divine inscriptions, no one else can. If there's someone who can enter the Emperor Palace, it will definitely be me. Xian Xing spoke arrogantly, incomparably brazen. Chapter 905. Shaolin Yue stared at the arrogant expression on Xian Xing's face. In this place, not only was Xian Xing proficient in divine inscriptions, there were a few other geniuses who also had extremely high attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions. However, none of them could be compared to Xian Xing. Xian Yang and Xian Xing's father was the Xian Emperor whose name shook the immortal realms. Not only was he at the immortal Emperor realm, his attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions were extremely high as well. Xian Yang had never dabbled in divine inscriptions, he was only interested in strength. Xian Xing was different, he inherited the Xian Emperor's talent in the Tao of divine inscriptions and was much stronger compared to those of the older generations. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't hear Xian Xing's words. His gaze was fixated on the ancient pathway leading to the misty Emperor Palace. The diagrams were too profound, incomparably exquisite, and could be said to have reached the peak of perfection. He could clearly decipher one of the diagrams, but once he broke it, he would instantly trigger a destructive might. Behind each divine inscription diagram, there seemed to be countless traps waiting for you to fall into. For those with low attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions, if they were to carelessly step in, they would definitely end up in a miserable state. I can't break it. Qin Wendian suddenly spoke. Xiao Yue's expression froze, she turned her head and stared at Qin Wendian. After a moment of silence, she solemnly spoke, take a closer look. No one in the city of ancient emperors can break this divine inscription. Qin Wendian decisively spoke, causing a strange expression to appear on Xiao Yue's face. The arrogance of this fellow in front of her didn't lose out to Xian Xing at all. Stop boasting. You can't break it, but that doesn't mean others can't. Xian Xing couldn't help but to laugh coldly when he saw how arrogant Qin Wendian was. Since you are so strong, why don't you break it for me to see? Qin Wendian stared at Xian Xing as he replied, causing Xian Xing to swallow back his words. Xian Xing's eyes flashed. He surveyed Qin Wendian as he coldly laughed, do you know who you are talking to? Or should I say, do you think that just because Xiao Yue invited you here, you have enough confidence to speak to me in this manner? Who you are has nothing to do with me. I will speak the same way as you. Qin Wendian's countenance turned sharp as he replied. Very good. Xian Xing stepped out as divine inscriptions manifested on the ground. Xiao Yue frowned and stepped out, blocking in front of Qin Wendian. She stared at Xian Xing. Xian Xing, what do you want to do? Hiding behind a woman. Xian Xing sneered as he glanced at Qin Wendian. After which, he flicked his sleeves and turned around to continue observing the path towards the monarch palace. Xiao Yue's countenance was no longer as good as before. She frowned as she stared ahead, as though in contemplation. At this moment, Qin Wendian spoke in a low voice beside her, since there's an emperor palace, there's definitely a way to enter it. It's just that from what I can see, no one would be able to unravel the diagram. If we want to enter, we have to step into it and allow ourselves to sink into it. At that time, there would definitely be a huge transformation on this ancient pathway. Xiao Yue turned, her beautiful eyes staring at Qin Wendian, are you sure? Before this, there should have been people who tried it before. Qin Wendian replied. Xiao Yue stared into Qin Wendian's eyes as she nodded, indeed. Before this, those who tried to force their way in would all sink into it due to the transformation of the ancient pathway. It's unknown whether they're dead or alive. From this point, your conjecture isn't wrong. Lin Yue, don't trust this man so easily. He's just a 7th level ascendant, his life and death isn't important. But if you encounter danger, the consequences would be unimaginable. Xia Qianhan reminded Xiao Yue. Qin Wendian's words were extremely risky. Since you don't dare to take the risk, why don't you just return directly? Why do you still want to enter the Emperor Palace? Could it be that there won't be any danger after entering? Qin Wendian mocked. Xia Qianhan narrowed her eyes, staring at Qin Wendian, pay attention to your tone. If you don't need me, I can leave right now. Qin Wendian stared at Xiao Yue. This Xia Qianhan had never given him any face before, and he couldn't be bothered with her. Qin Wendian knew his own limitations. Xiao Yue was a supreme beauty, and was also the daughter of the Shao Emperor. It was impossible for her to take a fancy to him. Before this, she only invited him to join the Shao sect because she wanted to see his attainments in divine inscriptions. But what about Xia Qianhan? It seemed like he didn't know his own limitations at all. He felt that Qin Wendian wasn't qualified to be together with Xiao Yue. However, in Xiao Yue's heart, he probably didn't have much weight either. Xiao Yue didn't even care about the two chosen of the Xian Emperor, let alone him, Xia Qianhan. Stop arguing. Xiao Yue unhappily spoke. Let's wait a few more days and see if they can decipher it. Xia Qianhan didn't say anything, he merely glanced at Qin Wendian with a cold gaze. There were many experts here, and there were also many geniuses who wanted to decipher the divine inscriptions. But as time flowed by, there was still no one who could decipher it. However, these geniuses were all very patient. After waiting for a few days without any results, Qin Wendian sat down at the side and closed his eyes to meditate. He knew he wouldn't be able to decipher the divine inscriptions, and he couldn't be bothered to waste time on it. This was a dead end. He couldn't see through the transformations of the divine inscriptions, only by trying would he know. Qin Wendian. At this moment, Shaolin Yue walked to the side of Qin Wendian and called out. Qin Wendian opened his eyes only to see Shaolin Yue looking at him. During these few days, these geniuses didn't make any progress at all. Seems like you are right, I believe your words. But, do you dare to take the risk? I feel that since there's an emperor palace here, there's no way it's a dead end. Qin Wendian replied. Okay, in that case, I will follow you from now on. Shaolin Yue smiled, exuding boundless charm. Qin Wendian stood up and his silhouette flickered. Xia Qianhan stared at Shaolin Yue. Lin Yue, do you really want to take the risk? Since we're already here, why not give it a try? For those of the Shao sect who are willing to back out, you can return. For those who are willing to take the risk, follow me. Shaolin Yue slowly walked forward, her steps resolute. Since Shaolin Yue was a female, how could the geniuses of the Shao sect retreat? They exchanged glances and smiled as they followed after Shaolin Yue. Qin Wendian passed by Xian Xing. Xian Xing inclined his head and stared at them, only to see Qin Wendian directly stepping onto the ancient pathway. Courting death. Xian Xing coldly laughed. As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wendian directly stepped on the runic diagram. Instantly, a thunderous boom rang out as a terrifying aura gushed forth, causing the ancient pathway to tremble and tremble, as though it was about to collapse. Although Shaolin Yue was prepared, she was still stunned when she saw this scene. But in the next instant, she saw Qin Wendian's body being devoured by the ancient pathway. Gritting her teeth, her silhouette flickered as she stepped forward, entering the pathway together with Qin Wendian. Go, let's enter. The people of the Shao sect all stepped in, allowing the ancient pathway to bury them. Everyone has gone crazy. Xian Xing's eyes flashed with a dazzling light. After which, he spoke, those of the Twin Stars Alliance, follow me in. His personality was one that refused to submit to others, and his attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions were also extremely high. In truth, he could faintly sense that Qin Wendian's words might be right. This was a path of no return, it was just that he wasn't willing to admit it. But since Shaolin Yue dared to take the risk, how could he retreat? With someone leading the way, the guts of the others instantly grew bolder. This was especially so when the great beauty Shaolin Yue took the lead. The geniuses naturally couldn't avoid her. Hence, the geniuses of the Shao sect all stepped into the ancient pathway. But an instant later, they felt the heavens and earth turning upside down, as though their bodies were buried underground. Numerous weak flames lit up the surroundings, illuminating this space. The geniuses surveyed their surroundings, only to discover that they were actually in an underground palace. Qin Wendian, you were right. Shaolin Yue's beautiful eyes gleamed with sharpness when she saw this scene. The pathway wasn't on the ancient pathway, but rather, it was underground. This underground palace was filled with complicated runic diagrams and was extremely vast. Ahead of them was a stretch of darkness, as though there was no end. Our luck isn't bad. Xian Xing wasn't willing to admit that Qin Wendian saw through this earlier than him. And at this moment, Xian Xing's silhouette abruptly flickered as he dashed towards a certain direction. Not only him, several other experts also dashed out at the same time. Qin Wendian was among them. Scram! Xian Xing roared in rage. He stomped on the ground as the runic diagram on the ground directly lit up, radiating with a terrifying light. A ferocious beast with a towering baleful aura soared through the air, rushing towards Qin Wendian and the others. Qin Wendian similarly stepped towards a runic diagram. His body transformed into a bolt of lightning, akin to a wind rock, riding the wind as he lunged towards the wall ahead. What are they fighting for? Shaolin Yue frowned, she instantly understood that these people were fighting for something. The ones who acted were all geniuses who were proficient in divine inscriptions. How dare they act on their own? Xia Qianhan spoke. Lin Yue, we have to be on guard against this man. Xiao Lin Yue stared ahead. At this moment, she also understood that the runic diagrams in this underground palace were all extremely powerful divine inscriptions. These geniuses who were proficient in divine inscriptions were directly borrowing the power of their divine inscriptions to clash against each other. Qin Wendian borrowed the power of the wind rock, his speed explosively increased. However, the attacks from the powerful divine inscriptions directly rushed towards him. Xian Xing roared in rage, "You dare!" After speaking, his palms expanded as a terrifying ancient killing imprint blasted out. However, Qin Wendian's body had already reached the wall. He pressed his palms upwards as a brilliant light flashed. It was as though a picture scroll had appeared, directly rushing into Qin Wendian's sea of consciousness. The attacks from the back were all focused on him as well. Qin Wendian's body trembled violently as he transformed into a true wind rock. Rumbling sounds rang out as the attacks slammed into Qin Wendian's afterimage. "I've already obtained the map, why aren't you helping out yet?" Qin Wendian roared as he sped forward. Upon hearing his words, Shaolin Yue and the others also dashed out, dashing towards Qin Wendian. A terrifying freezing might gushed forth from her as she clenched her fist in the air. The terrifying freezing might caused all the geniuses here to shiver. However, Xian Xing still rushed towards Qin Wendian. His eyes gleamed with a dazzling sharpness, as though a terrifying astral light could be seen within. It was as though he had opened his heavenly eye, and at this instant, all the divine inscriptions and diagrams in the palace couldn't be hidden from his eyes. He stepped out as boundless might gushed forth, wanting to obstruct Shaolin Yue. Mystic eyes. Shaolin Yue's expression froze. Qin Wendian was in danger. Chapter 906. Every step Xian Xing took was akin to the dance of dragons and snakes. His powerful attacks didn't even need to exhaust his own energy. He was purely using the divine inscriptions in the underground palace to launch his attacks. Xian Xing had a pair of mystic eyes that could see through divine inscriptions with a single glance. His attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions were extremely high, and as long as there were attack-type divine inscriptions in this underground palace, he would be able to use them to his advantage. As Qin Wendian madly sprinted forward, he felt a towering pressure gushing towards him from behind. He didn't pause for even a moment and directly stepped on a certain diagram. Abruptly, the diagram lit up, becoming incomparably resplendent. His body seemed to be clad in a layer of fearsome devil armor, impenetrable. Turning around, he directly blasted out a punch. There were powerful divine imprints inscribed on his devil armor, and with this punch, numerous devils howled and rushed out, blasting towards Xian Xing's attack. Terrifying rumbling sounds reverberated throughout the underground palace, and the tremors caused everyone to feel as though this underground palace was going to collapse at any moment. Divine inscriptions armor. Xian Xing's expression was incredibly unsightly to behold. So it turned out that Qin Wendian had sped towards that direction because he saw the divine inscriptions armor and was the first to obtain it. At this moment, Qin Wendian's entire body shone resplendently, exuding an unexcelled aura. Numerous silhouettes sped over, surrounding Qin Wendian. Those from the Twin Stars Alliance and the other geniuses all understood that this underground palace might very well be the passageway to the true Emperor Palace. Since Qin Wendian had obtained the map, this matter was extremely important. Hand it over. Xian Xing stepped out step by step, only to see a terrifying flood dragon soaring into the air, aiming to devour Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian coldly laughed. With a wave of his hand, he pressed his palm onto a runic diagram and slashed out ferociously. A towering devil saber slashed down from the heavens, slamming into the black flood dragon. The flood dragon was destroyed, while the devil saber was shattered. What a powerful attainment in the Tao of divine inscriptions. Although he doesn't have the mystic eyes, he's still extremely familiar with the divine inscriptions in this underground palace. Everyone stared at Qin Wendian. This person was like a tiger that had grown wings in the underground palace, and his strength had become much stronger. Xian Xing, it doesn't seem right for you to treat the people of my Shao clan like this. Xiao Lingyue walked up. Although she was clad in crimson robes, right now her entire body exuded an aura of coldness, causing people to involuntarily shiver. The person you invited has guts. Xian Xing smiled at Qin Wendian and said, since the map is with him, let him lead the way. Everyone, follow him, how about it? All right. Xiao Lingyue nodded, she didn't reject. If they really found the Emperor Palace, the strength of their Shao sect would be the strongest. What was there to fear? On the contrary, in this underground palace, their hands and feet would be tied. Qin Wendian, you lead the way. Xiao Lingyue stepped forward, arriving at the back of Qin Wendian as she transmitted her voice to him, well done. Qin Wendian smiled as he continued walking forward. This underground palace was extremely vast, resembling a mausoleum of an emperor. It was vast and sinister, exuding an ancient and mysterious aura. Several paths appeared in front of them, each of them exuding a mysterious aura. Which path should we take? Xiao Lingyue asked. This one. Qin Wendian pointed to a path in front of him as he continued walking forward. The others followed behind him. A gust of cold wind gusted by, exuding a sinister aura, causing people to feel a chill down their spines. This space seemed to be a gigantic cave dwelling with stone walls as though they were in the middle of an ancient mountain. However, the stone walls were uneven, causing the cave dwelling to be in an irregular shape, extending outwards unceasingly. The various geniuses didn't say anything, they were all very calm with solemn expressions. If this was truly the path to the Emperor Palace, they might encounter danger at any moment. They had no choice but to be cautious. And at this moment, the footsteps of the group abruptly halted. Their gazes were fixed ahead, and on the ground, there were actually many corpses. In fact, there were even some experts who had fallen here, but their corpses were still perfectly preserved. This. The hearts of everyone trembled. In front of them, there was a mysterious ancient wall with countless complicated runic inscriptions inscribed on it. Xiao Lingyue's silhouette flickered as she appeared before an intact corpse. The skin of this corpse was like jade, incomparably flawless. However, there was no aura coming from it. Evidently, this person was already dead, and it was unknown how long he had been dead for. At the very least, he's an Immortal Foundation expert. Xiao Lingyue's gaze froze. Such skin, there was no doubt that this was an immortal physique. She slowly moved forward, arriving before another corpse. This corpse was already smashed into smithereens, revealing some of its bones. However, there seemed to be marvelous runic inscriptions engraved on these bones, as though they were the laws of the Great Tao. They actually contained traces of terrifying might. Rune bones. Seems like this person has already established an immortal king physique. Every single bone in his body is a supreme treasure. Xiao Lingyue's countenance trembled. When this person was alive, he must have been an immortal king. Even his bones contained rune bones, containing powerful law energy. Many of the corpses here belonged to immortal kings. Such characters had all died here. What did you obtain exactly? Is it really just a map? At this moment, a cold voice drifted over. Xian Xing's eyes stared at Qin Wendian, as coldness flashed in his eyes. He wouldn't trust people easily, let alone a stranger. Earlier, the scroll on the wall was unique, there seemed to be some marvelous diagrams circulating within it. Hence, all of them were fighting over it. But right now, only Qin Wendian knew if it was really a map or not. The person who shouted out that he obtained the map was none other than Qin Wendian himself. At this moment, Xiao Lingyue's gaze also turned to Qin Wendian. Her beautiful eyes gleamed with a bright light. Evidently, a trace of suspicion appeared in her heart. Only Qin Wendian knew if this was really a map or not. Qin Wendian, tell me the truth. Is that really the map of this underground palace? Where is the endpoint? What is our current location? Xiao Lingyue transmitted her voice to Qin Wendian. After Xian Xing's reminder, Xiao Lingyue started to feel suspicious. This is a dead end, there's no map at all. At this moment, a voice rang out. The gazes of the crowd turned over and stared at the stone wall in front of them. A Heaven's Chosen stood there, staring at an unmoving body. This body was sitting there, as though it had died in a seated position. Xiao Lingyue's beautiful eyes flashed with sharpness. After which, her silhouette flickered. The others also moved towards that person, following his gaze. On the ground before the corpse, there was actually a row of words inscribed there. Tens of thousands of years, thinking of countless endings. Who would have thought that I would be trapped here, dying at the end of my lifespan? This line of words was shocking to the eye, causing those who saw it to feel a chill run down their spines. They felt a bone-chilling coldness from head to toe. This expert who died in a seated posture was trapped here for tens of thousands of years. He had thought of countless endings, yet he didn't expect that he would be trapped here, dying at the end of his lifespan. Tens of thousands of years, what a terrifying number of years. There was a high possibility that this person was also an immortal king who had reached the end of his lifespan and was trapped here until his death. Even immortal kings were like this, what about them? Numerous cold gazes landed on Qin Wentian as killing intent gushed forth. Even the experts of the Shao sect were staring at Qin Wentian, their countenances cold and filled with killing intent. If it wasn't for Qin Wentian wanting to enter this place, they wouldn't have taken the risk. Only when Qin Wentian took the lead did they dare to enter. In that case, the scroll Qin Wentian obtained might not be a map at all. There was no map at all. Xiao Lingyue's countenance turned cold. Qin Wentian had lied to her. Why haven't you guys finished reading the words? Qin Wentian spoke. Everyone naturally had already finished reading. There was still a row of words below. Ancient Emperor Yi, how can one comprehend the secrets of this underground palace? The killing intent radiating from everyone was extremely terrifying as they stared at Qin Wentian. An immortal king was trapped here and they were all brought in by Qin Wentian. You guys wanted to enter the Emperor Palace and I brought you in. This is indeed the passageway. From this, we can already be certain that this is an underground palace created by an ancient emperor. What's laughable is that you guys are all geniuses of the immortal realms and chose to enter willingly. Now, you guys are actually venting your anger on me? Don't you find this ironic? Qin Wentian laughed. I don't think I forced anyone to enter this place, right? Although Qin Wentian said this, the expressions of everyone were still unfriendly. Xia Qianhan's countenance turned even colder. Lingyue, I've long said that we can't trust this man so easily. Now that he brought us into this place of danger, he deserves to die. But what he said isn't wrong. This is indeed the passageway to the Emperor Palace of an ancient emperor. If we can unravel the secrets of the underground palace, we might be able to obtain the secrets of ancient Emperor Yi or even his inheritance. Xiao Lingyue spoke. You guys should have heard of ancient Emperor Yi before, right? The eyes of everyone gleamed with sharpness. If they saw ancient Emperor Yi's name before, they would surely be wild with joy. But right now, panic had covered their joy. An immortal king had died here, how could they feel joy? Of course I know. Ancient Emperor Yi was a character who once unified the immortal realms. It's rumored that in this immortal realms, only those supreme characters who managed to do so would have the qualifications to be known as ancient emperors. Ancient Emperor Yi was one of them, a character whose name shook the past and present. To think that his emperor palace would really be in the city of ancient emperors. If this was known to the outside world, it would surely cause a huge commotion. Someone spoke. The city of ancient emperors has always been independent from the immortal realms. It's a mysterious place. Without permission, even immortal kings and emperors wouldn't be able to enter. Before this, I've already heard that there were ruins left behind by ancient emperors. Now that I personally saw ancient Emperor Yi's name appearing here, I can only feel how mysterious this place is. Although Xiao Lingyue was panicking in her heart, she still maintained a clear head. If we can obtain the world-shaking secret art of ancient Emperor Yi. Xiaolin Yue mumbled, her words causing the hearts of many who had heard of ancient Emperor Yi to tremble violently. According to the legends, ancient Emperor Yi's world-shaking secret art had been lost for many years. The reason why these immortal kings appeared here was most probably because of this secret art. Sadly, not only did they fail to obtain it, they even died here. Now that they came here, was it a blessing or a calamity? Chapter 907. Everyone fell silent. They were all descendants of immortal kings and emperors, many of them have heard of the legends regarding ancient emperors before. They all knew that in the vast immortal realms, there had once been some world-shaking immortal emperors. These immortal emperors had once unified the vast chaotic immortal realms, standing at the peak of the immortal realms, becoming emperors of all times. Ancient Emperor Yi was one of them. And just like what was in this underground palace, ancient Emperor Yi seemed to be an immortal emperor that was proficient in divine inscriptions and had a world-shaking secret art. There was always a legend in the immortal realms that if an immortal emperor could obtain the secret art of an ancient emperor, they would have the chance to dominate the immortal realms. How can it be so easy to obtain the secret art of ancient Emperor Yi? Even immortal kings were trapped here, reaching the end of their lifespans, let alone us. In addition, even if the secret art of ancient Emperor Yi was placed before us, who would dare to say that they would be able to comprehend it? Someone spoke, causing the hearts of everyone to sink again. What was a world-shaking secret art? A secret art that could shake the entire world, able to dominate the immortal realms. Even immortal kings and emperors yearned for it, let alone them. Also, if it really appeared before them, it would be extremely difficult to comprehend it. If it was so easy to comprehend, these secret arts wouldn't have been lost in the first place. The secret art of ancient Emperor Yi should be God's hand, right? Xiaolin Yue spoke in a low voice, causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. Indeed, ancient Emperor Yi's ultimate art was none other than God's hand. Just hearing the name of this art would cause countless illusions to appear. However, nobody knew what God's hand was, and nobody had ever seen how terrifying God's hand was. Could it really shatter the heavens and earth? It's God's hand. However, what we should be discussing now, shouldn't we be discussing what exactly did this person obtain earlier? Xian Xing pointed his finger at Qin Wentian, as though he had no intentions of letting Qin Wentian off. Qin Wentian frowned, staring at Xian Xing. I already said that it's a map. It's already imprinted in your mind. I don't believe you. Xian Xing coldly snorted. You also know that it's already imprinted in my mind. If you don't believe me, could it be that you want to dig it out from my mind? Qin Wentian coldly spoke. Why not? If you don't hand it over, you will definitely die before the others. Xian Xing stepped out as the experts of the Twin Stars Alliance surrounded Qin Wentian, exuding a terrifying aura. Right now, what's more important is to find a way out. There's no need to continue fighting. Xiaolin Yue coldly spoke. Leng Yu, previously, he lied to us and said that he had obtained the map. Perhaps it was because he wanted us to help him. Why do we have to interfere? Xia Qianhan said from the side. I'll say it again. That's the map of the underground palace. The ancient path that we were on earlier has 5 forks, and this is one of them. If not for your sudden attack, I wouldn't have tried to snatch the map away. Actually, it's completely useless. It's only so that the people who come in can see the situation clearly. Otherwise, why do you think these corpses weren't taken away when they came in? Qin Wentian spoke in a loud voice, causing the expressions of everyone to freeze. Qin Wentian's words made sense. This map had always been present at the entrance, and there was a high possibility that it was just an ordinary map. We will settle this debt with you when we return. Xian Xing pointed his finger at Qin Wentian. Let's go and see if there are any secrets hidden within the 5 forks. After speaking, Xian Xing turned and led the experts of the Twin Stars Alliance away, preparing to explore the other 4 forks. Xiaolin Yue's brows were tightly furrowed. After a moment, she spoke in a low voice, even immortal kings died here. If we say we can find a way out, that's nothing but a fool's dream. We should take a closer look and see if there are any secrets hidden within this underground palace. Qin Wentian, you are proficient in divine inscriptions. It's rumored that ancient Emperor Yi was also a terrifying divine inscriptionist grandmaster. The entire underground palace is engraved with divine inscriptions. Take a look and see if there's any way to open the mechanism. Shaolin Yue spoke to Qin Wentian. Right. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. He surveyed this cavern-like space. Regardless of the stone walls or the space above his head, there were countless divine inscriptions engraved on them. There were many unique types of divine inscriptions that could be fused together at will. For those who were proficient in divine inscriptions, they would be able to find countless types of divine inscriptions here. To those who cultivated in the field of divine inscriptions, this place was like a treasure trove. But compared to ancient Emperor Yi, this treasure trove was insignificant. Hence, even those geniuses who were proficient in divine inscriptions didn't pay too much attention to it. Qin Wentian observed for a long time, yet a pessimistic feeling appeared in his heart. From the looks of it, other than divine inscriptions, there was nothing else. It seemed like there was no other way out. A few hours later, Shaolin Yue walked to Qin Wentian's side and asked, "Did you discover anything?" "Nope." Qin Wentian shook his head. He was the one who brought Shaolin Yue in. From her beautiful eyes, he actually couldn't see any anger or resentment. This point caused Qin Wentian to be extremely startled. Shaolin Yue's temperament was extraordinary. "I'll go take a look at the other places." Qin Wentian spoke. Shaolin Yue nodded her head, "I'll accompany you. If you meet Xian Xing, he might act against you again." After speaking, she didn't even ask for Qin Wentian's opinion and directly led the way. Qin Wentian stared at her back view before following after her. The atmosphere in the palace was extremely quiet, only the sound of footsteps could be heard. Shaolin Yue turned her head back and smiled. That smile of hers seemed to be able to hook away the souls of people. "Do you think that we will be like those immortal kings and die when we reach the end of our lifespans?" Shaolin Yue suddenly asked. "I won't think about this." Qin Wentian replied. "I'll only think about how to exit this place." "You are very optimistic." Shaolin Yue smiled. "Those immortal kings have already forged their immortal bodies, and their bodies won't rot. If we die when we reach the end of our lifespans, we would only be a pile of bones. No matter how I look now, at that time, I would definitely be extremely ugly." After speaking, a bitter smile appeared on her face, as though she was mocking herself. Qin Wentian didn't say anything. The two of them continued walking forward quietly, arriving at the fork in the road. Shaolin Yue stood beside Qin Wentian and smiled. "What you saw, was it really just a map of the underground palace?" "Emichum, there's no need for me to lie to you." Qin Wentian nodded. "I believe you." Shaolin Yue smiled. "Come, let's take a look at the other paths." Qin Wentian cast a deep glance at Shaolin Yue's back view, feeling a chill running down his spine. Did Shaolin Yue really believe him? If she did, why would she intentionally walk together with him? She even smiled radiantly at him earlier and asked this question. Although Shaolin Yue's actions were extremely natural, Qin Wentian had long since passed the age of ignorance. How could he not see through her? This Shaolin Yue was even more terrifying compared to what he had imagined. Her scheming ability caused him to feel a chill in his heart. Did Shaolin Yue really not feel any resentment towards him for bringing Shaolin Yue to this forbidden ground? Qin Wentian continued following behind Shaolin Yue. The two of them each had their own worries in their hearts, neither of them knew what the other was thinking. This ancient path was extremely similar to the one before, there were no abnormalities at all. At the end of the ancient path, there were also a few corpses. Next, the third path, the fourth path, the fifth path, all of them were the same. Such a situation caused the geniuses who were trapped here to feel even more terror. Was there really no other path to take in this underground palace? Did they have to sit here and wait for death? Just a few days later, the emotions of the geniuses all felt somewhat off. Ancient emperors, ancient emperors, ancient emperors and ancient emperor E were all tossed to the back of their minds. Right now, they only wanted to leave this place. Although they could cultivate for several months or even several years, this was different. They were currently facing the threat of death. If they couldn't find the exit, they would die. Every day was a torment. Their frustrated emotions piled up day by day. After a month, even Xiao Lingyue's face no longer had the slightest hint of a smile on it. Her countenance was like 10,000-year-old ice, so cold that it was terrifying. Not only in the underground palace, even in the outside world, there were many experts gathered here. Among them, there were many from the Xiao sect and the Twin Stars Alliance. There was a young man among them that was extremely conspicuous. He stood in the center of the crowd, exuding an extraordinary aura. His features bore a striking resemblance to Xian Xing. This young man was none other than the elder brother of Xian Xing, Xian Yang of the Twin Stars Alliance. He was ranked number 4 on the Immortal Ascension rankings. Xian Xing has already been in there for a month, right? Xian Yang coldly spoke. The people around him could all feel the coldness radiating from him. Emicham, Xiao Linyue, and the others as well. Someone replied. The son of the Xian Emperor and the daughter of the Xiao Emperor, both of them had actually disappeared. Nobody knew what the consequences would be. If they died, the crowd couldn't help but shiver when they thought of this. Lingyue. Among the people of the Xiao sect, there was also a silhouette exuding magnificence through the generations. He stared ahead, his countenance as sharp as a divine weapon. His gaze turned to two people not far away from him. They were none other than Zi Qingxian and Jun Mengchen. Your friend brought Lingyue into such a desperate situation. If anything happens to Lingyue, I want all of you to die together with her. That young man icily spoke, his words causing Jun Mengchen to coldly stare at him. A bunch of fools. Little rascal lay lazily in Zi Qingshuan's embrace. Upon seeing the lazy look on his face, Zi Qingxian and Jun Mengchen knew that nothing had happened to Qin Wentian. In a place infinitely far away from here, in a certain particle world, an old man stood on the peak of an ancient mountain. Beside him was an extremely cold-looking man, and right in front of them, a young man was slowly moving closer. Walking to the side of the old man, the young man asked, "Senior, do you know of ancient Emperor Yi?" "I do." "Why are you asking this for?" the old man faintly asked, feeling somewhat unhappy. "I want to know what sort of energy ancient Emperor Yi was proficient in." The young man asked. "God's hand." However, although it's called God's hand, in truth, it's something that can be unleashed from the energy in one's body. He tempered his body to the point that it's compatible with the laws of the universe, allowing his palms to unleash a heaven-shaking might. God's hand isn't a palm technique, it's a technique that can be used to unleash any sort of innate technique. Any attack he unleashed would be able to unleash terrifying might in his hands. This is why it's called God's hand. The old man calmly replied.